About to start with the ordinary council meeting. It is 11:01. I would like to welcome everybody here this morning. Directors, councillors, managers, the public that is logged in virtual. Good morning and welcome in this ordinary council meeting 31st October 2022. I believe the attendance register is circulating. Thank you, Jess. Please make sure that all councillors sign the attendance register. And before we commence any further, we would like to open this morning's procedure with a silent prayer. We'll start now. Thank you. Amen. Amen. We will continue to point 3, the application for leave of absence. Councillors, please note I have received. You would notice that one of the councillors is not here. The absence of leave has been communicated to me. Councillor Seti is not here with us today due to illness. So that's the only application of leave received. All councillors is present here this morning. We will go to point 4. Point 4 deals with the declaration of interest. Is there any disclosure from any councillor? Take it there's none. We will then move to point 5. Point 5 deals with the confirmation of minutes for previous meetings. 5.1, minutes of the special council meeting dated 29 September 2022. For those that have seen the minutes, Alia, can you just help us with the minutes, please?
The minutes on 29 September 2022, starting on page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 is the last page, and then you can reach the 16, 17, and 18.
Councillors, is that a true reflection of the minutes? Councillor Nell?
Speaker, I propose that we take the minutes as read and correct.
Proposed by Councillor Nell. Councillor Ndai?
Seconded, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Ndai. Within the special council minutes, we'll move now to point 6. The statement and communication by the Executive Mayor or the Speaker. Executive Mayor, do you have any communications?
Thank you, Speaker. First, I'd just like to welcome Councillor Adamson to the first council meeting. She was sworn in last week. So we welcome her. Nice to have you here. And then just an update on what's happening with regards to safety for season. We've got the season plan that's serving in this agenda. But we also have had incidents with a lot of shark sightings and shark attacks recently. So just an update there. People will have seen some of the new signs going up. It notifies people at the beaches. And the decision was taken by the shark, which consists of municipal staff as well as the public organizations, that we're going to work in conjunction with a group called Shark Spotters that have been going in business for 17 years, and they're from Cape Town, and they'll be here this week to assist us in getting programs up and running to ensure that people that visit our beaches are safe, especially for the in-water activities. We've got to obviously consider our locals that use the beaches a lot, and also holiday makers, to assure them that we're doing all we can to ensure their safety. So that program is starting this week, where they're going to assist us in appointing people to act as shark spotters. We're going to be using local people. We're not going to be using people from outside of Plet. This whole program, it will be local people, local businesses. And the shark spotters will just be acting in an advisory capacity to help us get to where we need to be to ensure safety of people in water. So thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no communications from me. We will then move to point 7. Point 7 deals with presentations. This morning, we have the utilization of the airport. Presenters, SMEC. Now allow the presentation.
Thank you, guys. Sit here or you?
If you don't mind.
Thank you, everyone. My name is.
So the mic is on. Thank you.
Everyone hear me now?
Can you hear it?
Thank you, speakers. Morning, everyone. My name is Bitou Municipality. I'm from South Africa. I represent our office. So speakers recently been appointed by the Bitou Municipality to undertake master plan review and transaction advisory services with the Westburg Bay Airport. And we've partnered with GPI aviation specialists to together with the study for the Bitou Municipality. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce our team. I'm going to hand over to Mr. John Eager, who will go into a bit more detail on everything. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Speaker, Honourable Mayor, Women, Councillors, thank you for the opportunity. As Willem has said, we've been working for 2 to 3 months now on a package of transaction advisory and technical services, and have already been involved in a number of briefings with the Mayor and Municipal Manager, who have asked us to present to this council meeting a brief summary of the work that we've been doing, and some recommendations on what we see as the way forward. So the presentation, as you can see, I've divided it into 4 main topics. The first one, sorry, can we just go back? There we go. The first one, I spent a little bit of time on speaking about the institutional background and how the aviation industry, and particularly for Bitou, finds itself in the position that it's in. What is the status quo of air services, particularly scheduled services to the Garden route, and what the position of Edinburgh Bay is? I'll talk a little bit about our vision for the future role of the airport, and how that might translate into a traffic forecast and a technical master plan for the airport. We'll report a little bit on a high-level business case and socio-economic study that we've done, and then we'll talk about what the options are for the municipality of how to take this issue forward and possibly restructure the airport. Can we go to the next one, please? Civil aviation in this country, it goes back to 1993 as the country prepared to re-establish international connectivity prior to the democratic elections. And government at the time, or the interim government at the time, felt that a priority was to re-establish international connectivity that had been absolutely decimated during the previous regime. And to do so, it created this state-owned enterprise called AXA, which we all know about, to whom the ownership and responsibility of the management of the 9 national airports were granted. And it just so happens regionally, two of those AXA airports at Gqeberha and George are obviously influential in what we are going to discuss later on. So you had AXA controlling 9 national airports. And since then, AXA has developed into dominant airport force in this country that handles probably 90% of all the scheduled passengers that move in the country to and from the country. The main route being Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, which is called the Golden Triangle. What happened later on, just before the Constitution was enacted in 1996, was that the 150 or more municipal airports that had previously been under the jurisdiction of the National Department of Transport was delegated in terms of Schedule B of the Constitution to the jurisdiction of district municipalities. And in the municipal legislation that was promulgated a couple of years after that, the legislators saw fit not to declare airports as basic municipal services, simply because the feeling was the municipalities had more important priorities to deal with in terms of the delivery of the basic municipal services. Which meant that airports, particularly municipal airports, were regarded as pretty low priority assets in comparison with the delivery of basic services like water, sanitation, electricity. There was a logic. Time has moved along, and I think we've all have seen what has happened to Plettenberg Airport in the period from about 2000 all the way through to 2022. Interestingly, the only province that has provided really good support for municipalities within the province. This started probably 15 years ago, were colleagues in where between the KZN Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, so-called ETIA, and the KZN Department of Transport, was they strategized the regional airport strategy. Which started in about 2013, 2014. None of the other provinces actually got behind the municipalities and provided that sort of support. So you've got a situation now where KZN that period was probably about 400 million of provincial support to airport infrastructure. So you had airports like Kusi, Newcastle, Pietermaritzburg, Margate, Richards Bay, all of which are very well positioned now to grow in the future and to provide that regional connectivity in KZN. Unfortunately, that situation hasn't happened in any of the other provinces. So in the context of to Plettenberg Bay, what do we do? The position that the council has taken, in the absence of institutional support, should we say, is that recently this council has passed a Section 14.2 resolution, in terms of which it is resolved that the airport land, in terms of the MFMA, Section 14.2 is no longer required for the delivery of basic municipal services. And secondly, the council is no longer in a position to operate the airport. That leads to a number of important questions that we were asked to deal with. First one being, is the site sustainable as an airport in itself? How financially sustainable is the airport business? What would be the socio-economic benefits to council and the region of keeping the airport operating? What type of air services can the airport support, given its position in relation to Gqeberha and George as potentially competitive airports within the Garden Route? And flowing from that then, if we can reach some sort of conclusion as to what sort of services we need the airport to produce in future, what land do we need to reserve for the operations of the airport, what land might be unlocked for the development of other types of use around the airport. And if we agree that that represents the vision for the future, then what are the institutional options available to realize that vision? Can we do the next one, please? So what we did was, first of all, we had a look at the status of the garden route, and the three airports that serve the garden route in terms of what sort of air services they provide and what the position of place is in that mix. So we looked at the catchment areas of the airports, we looked at the demographics, we looked at the current post-COVID traffic stats, we looked at where Clayton Bay sits within that mix and what its market share is. And we also worked out some of the what are called propensity to fly stats, which is really an industry standard measurement of how connected the region is. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. Then also, over the past 15 to 20 years, we've seen that passenger behavior and the decisions that inform a passenger's decision to fly have changed a lot. So whereas in the old days, the passenger would feel nothing about driving 4 to 5 hours to an airport. Post-COVID, and certainly in the past few years, those behavior patterns have changed. So travel time to an airport is important. The infrastructure and the appeal of the airport itself is important. Ticket prices are hugely important. And other convenience and safety factors at the airport are also important. So we had a look at some of those. Here is the analysis of the catchment area. What we see are the air services that serve the garden route. So in the east, you've got the Probeja, that has a catchment area of about 40,000 square meters. It does extend beyond the garden route, obviously, and it goes as far as probably Makande in the east, up as far as Franet in the north. On the western side, you've got George with a catchment area of about 28,000 square kilometers. Right in the middle, you've got Plet, which we reckon has got a catchment area of about 7,000 square kilometers. That includes the main centres of Plet in itself. So if you gross up that area, our catchment represents about 10% of the total catchment area of the garden route. Next one, please. Now, if we look at passengers that are currently moving into the garden route through scheduled air services, let's not dwell too much on the 2018-19 figures, but look at 2022-23 projections. We're looking at Probeja that's expected to generate 1.3 million passengers, which represents about 61% of the total scheduled air movements into the area. George, about 800,000. Now, when we talk about passengers, it's arrivals plus departures. If you're looking at either arrivals or departures, it's half of that. So George has got about 800,000 two-way pax, which represents 30%. And Plet, according to the current schedule that's operating, has got the potential to generate 30,000 pax per year. The interesting conclusion is you look at Probeja, 61% of the passengers out of 53% of the area. So there's a correlation there. George, 37% of the pax out of 37%. But here in Plet, 1.4% of the passengers only out of 10% of the area. So you can see we're really underperforming in terms of the potential if you look at the catchment area of the airport. If we look at it in terms of population figures, we see the same sort of trends. So the population of the catchment area around PE, if I can call it by its old name, 1.6 million people. George, 511,000, Plet, 204,000. Now, I know the municipal population is smaller than that, but because the catchment area extends beyond the municipal borders, that's the additional population. But same story. For Plet, we've got 1.4% of passengers, but 9% of the population. So the same sort of trends as we were seeing in catchment area. The right-hand column, this PTF, what I spoke about is the propensity to fly. There's an industry standard stat that the aviation guys use, where they rate the air traffic to population. So, for example, South Africa as a whole has got a propensity to fly of about 0.7. That's really 40 million passengers per annum of a total national population of about 60 million. So it says to us that every person in the population average makes about 0.7 of an air trip per year. And you can see that that is down at 0.39 or 0.4. George is up above the national average at about 0.78. Port is sitting at a very, very low PTF. The question is why? Why is that? If we've got only 1.4% of the passengers, 9% of the population, and 10% of the area. Just by way of comparison with the rest of the world, very sophisticated economies like Scandinavia, UK, Switzerland are sitting with PTS somewhere between 2 and 4. So what that tells us is in the aviation industry generally in South Africa, we are under not performing, but there's certainly potential to grow connectivity. But given our historical difficulties with unemployment, low earnings, etc., obviously air travel isn't accessible to a big percentage of the population. There's certainly scope for growth. Can we go to the next one, please? Going back to what I spoke about earlier on the modern trends in passenger behavior, distance and travel time is incredibly important. How does that affect us here in Plet? The first thing is that if you look at all the research that's been done worldwide, and you take, for example, a passenger in Knysna who might want to fly to Joburg or Cape Town. If you look at distance alone, that passenger should find Plet Airport 5 times more attractive than George Airport. Because he or she has got to travel 27 k's to get to the airport rather than 72 k's to get to the airport. But it doesn't work that way. We're sitting at 1.4% of the passengers, and George is sitting at 49% of the passengers. So what are the other issues that are creating this underperformance? And one is ticket prices. That I flew into George this morning, cost me 1,300 rand. If I'd flown into Plet, if there was a flight, it would have cost me double that. There are difficulties because while the traffic is relatively low, it's quite difficult for an operator to so organize his fleet and the way he provides the service that we've got continuous, reliable, and consistent service prices that passengers pay. I'll speak more about that later. But the other issue is airport infrastructure. We found from a lot of the research that's been done worldwide is that you have to have an airport that offers a reasonable level of infrastructure for passengers. So it's got to be perceived as safe. The service has got to be perceived as reliable, regular, cost effective. You've got to have a terminal, you've got to have car rentals, etc., etc. And I think the reality is that what we've got right now is just not up to scratch in terms of what passengers would demand. Let's move along. Taking all that into account, we said, okay, guys, what do we need to do now in terms of evolving or developing a strategy for care? And we said, to get to a traffic forecast and a master plan that will support that forecast, the very first thing we need to do is buy into the notion that we have to increase our market share from the 1.4% where we sit now to somewhere up to maybe the 9% or the 10%, or if we're not that aggressive, somewhere in between the two. If we want to get ourselves out of this difficulty, we do need to grow our market share, and we do need to adopt a strategy that allows us to do that. Then superimposed on that market share target, we say, well, we can rely on some regional economic growth, especially in pet. I mean, we all know the stats on immigration, for example, 170 new families per annum during COVID moving to pet. Those guys are target market for air services. And again, an element of the strategy is to say general aviation, which, if you go back to 2007, was the rock on which Plettenberg Bay Airport existed. We need to find a way of redeveloping and supporting the growth in general aviation. If we can agree on those three elements of a strategy, then the master plan sort of writes itself. We need to look at what we expect future traffic to be, what type of aircraft we expect to serve the airport, what sort of fire and rescue capability we need, what form and size and facilities we need to provide in terms of a new terminal, how do we create a new role for general aviation and non-scheduled services, taking into account the lessons that we learned during COVID, where a lot of the support services and in disaster relief in KZN, were it not for the general aviation and the non-scheduled industries, the response to a lot of these crises would have been a lot worse than it was. And then once we've done that, what's the potential for other land uses on the airport site and around the airport? Next, please. So we said, let's try and create 4 scenarios. The first column, we said our current market share is 1.4%, which I've called the base case. We've created 3 new growth cases, one which we call pessimistic, where we're saying if we can move from a 1.4% share of traffic now to a 3% by year 20, which is not a big growth year by year, what will the traffic look like by year 20? What we call the expected scenario is we said by year 20, we will have achieved a 5% market share, which is about half of our representation in terms of area and population. And then if we can dream a little bit and say an optimistic scenario, we can grow to 7% market share by year 20. What would the traffic look like? And then we superimpose that general regional economic growth by 2% for the base case, moving to 4% for the optimistic case. And the same for general growth in general aviation. I'm going to repeat myself, but those market share targets are well below the 9% population and the 10% by area of catchment. So there's no reason why, if we don't have a well-conceived strategy, we can't achieve those targets. If you look at all the international post-COVID projections, people like IATA, KO, all the industry standards, they're projecting growth for African air traffic of 5% or more. You're saying we don't think necessarily that a niche market in the Garden Route is necessarily representative of African traffic growth. So I don't think Plettenberg Bay is probably going to grow at the same level as Addis Ababa or Nairobi, but certainly within a range of 2 and 4%, we're in the right ballpark. What would be the diversification between scheduled services and non-scheduled services? Based on the lessons that we've learned during COVID, when non-scheduled services and charter type operations have become very important. And then the last note that I made, that is probably one of the centers of segregation. Stats that we got from the property guys here in Cape saying that the numbers during COVID were really, really positive. We haven't specifically taken that into account in the traffic forecasts, but it's something to think about. And that's what we get. So the dark blue line at the bottom is where we are right now at 30,000 passengers per annum, projected for the year to March 2023, growing not a lot, below 50,000 passengers a year by 2042. But if you start compounding the market share targets with the regional growth and the general aviation growth through purple, which is the pessimistic scenario, the green, which is the expected scenario, and the red, which is the optimistic scenario, you can see quite clearly that by 2042, depending upon where we end up, we could end up anywhere between 100,000 and over 300,000 passengers per year. So it's significant if we get it right. By way of comparison, because I know that some of you aren't necessarily versed in the aviation industry, but by way of comparison, Pietermaritzburg at the moment, which serves the catchment probably a little bit bigger than Plett, but a population about the same, is sitting on about 130,000 passengers per year right now. We say, what is it conceivable in 20 years' time to get to where we should have? Similarly, Maun in Botswana, the gateway to the Okavango Delta, is a town that's got probably a quarter of the number of tourism beds that we do. It's a town of a population of about 30,000 people, significantly just more. Logistically difficult to get to, and yet it's generating between 200,000, 250,000 passengers a year, served by at least, there's only one domestic service. There are probably 3 regional services to Maun at the moment. One from Cape Town, one from Joburg, one from Gabs, and one from Harare, and actually one from Nairobi. So you've got an airport that serves the catchment and a tourism destination that's smaller than the Garden Route, throwing out those sorts of numbers. So I don't believe this is I understand it, but I mean, this is how it research. What does it mean? Next one, please, if you don't mind. Those are the passenger projections. We also did some work on air traffic movements, because there is a correlation between passengers and air traffic movements, which depends on the size of the aeroplane. So obviously, if I've got an aeroplane that seats 70 people, there are going to be relatively fewer movements than an aeroplane that seats 6 people. Sorry, one back, please. That's the one. So again, if we look at it in terms of air traffic movements, the base case sees a decline in the number of aircraft. And that's simply because there's a tendency from Sending at the moment to use bigger airplanes to operate the scheduled services. Whereas they started off with 19-seater airplanes in 2018, during peaks, they're now using 50 to 74-seat airplanes. So in the projection, the number of movements will go down. But if you look at the optimistic scenario, and again, same principles apply. We are projecting 4,500 air traffic movements per annum. The interesting thing here is you go back to 2007, we were doing 4,000 movements a day. 2007, there were 4,000 aircraft arriving and departing from Cape. Yes, there were small aircraft, all non-scheduled passengers, all general aviation staff. And just to give a sense of the scale at which we operate, 4,500 aircraft movements of an airport like Cape is not a lot. The detailed report that we've submitted to the MPAC has a lot of background and research. It's got a lot of capacity analysis saying, well, if we're projecting this growth, will our infrastructure be able to handle it? For example, do we not need an additional runway, etc.? The answer is no. And all the supporting documents, the runway, the basic runway infrastructure that we've got at Cape at the moment can easily handle those sorts of things. Can we go to the next one, please? So, how do we get those numbers in terms of the expansion of scheduled service? Again, there's no hard research on it yet, but certainly, if you're looking at growing those passenger numbers, we would need increased frequency for our channel. We would possibly look at a new service to Lanseria if there was demand for it. We look at increased frequencies to Cape Town. We would look at diversified services to newly developing airports like Cape Winelands, for example. Building on the bush beach type tourism market, the possibility of a service to Kruger, Mpumalanga, or Nelspruit, or Skukuza, possible service to Durban, possible service to Margate, possible service to Mkuzi. Let me talk a little bit about that. Mkuzi is one of the airports that has been actively supported by the KZN, Treasury, and Provincial Air Tier. When we started Mkuzi, probably by 2011, the traffic projections for Mkuzi 60,000 passengers a year, which sits round about the pessimistic projection for Cape. To date, Provincial Treasury and Air Tier has invested 71 million to that airport. And contracted with, okay, it's not a privatized airport, but contracted with Access to manage the airport. And operational probably by early next year. Or for passenger projection, a hell of a lot lower than ours. In terms of air services, is there enough demand to sustain an air service? I was looking at some of the airline schedules this morning, in fact. There is a schedule operated from Durban to, I can't remember the destination, 3 flights a week. That's it. Potential passengers of 12,000 a year, which is less than half of what we're doing now. But an airline is prepared to operate that service at those low passenger volumes. So if someone raises the argument that we don't have the traffic here or the potential traffic here to support 30,000 passengers a year, I'd say be very careful about those arguments. You've got airlines in this country right now that are operating services of 12,000. Moving on. How does this relate to the land use and what areas we need to? The slide's a little bit messy, but if you look at projections in terms of passengers, air traffic movements, etc., and the vision that we need to try and grow general aviation, then of the 66 hectare site, we need to reserve about 42 hectares for what I would call core aviation or airport operations. So that's everything inside that white line. So the most important is obviously the runway, which is that dirty orange color. And based on an analysis of the aircraft that are operating in the regional market at the moment, we're seeing that All we would need is a possible extension of the runway from the current 1,300 meters to about 1,500. This isn't new because an engineering study was done way back in 2004 that pretty much proved the technical feasibility of doing that. So this is not any new science that we brought. But yet saying, guys, trust the work that was done by the technical specialists way back in 2004. What we do need to do, though, in anticipation of the volumes, whether it's the 50,000, the 100,000, 200,000, we need to provide for an expanded apron. And I think those of you who know the airport will understand why. The moment you bring a big 74-seater airplane in there, there's no room for anything else. Construction of a new terminal, parking area, essentially to expand the general aviation area. So we said there's about a hectare available within the existing GA area to expand. But the recommendation is to provide for a new GA area on the eastern side. Next to the access road that will give you another 3.9 hectares of general and corporate aviation area, which then leaves 8.6 hectares of what I would call spare land, the blue section at the bottom, and then 5.4 hectare section below that adjoining the airport road on the northern side, which we don't think is required for airport uses. That becomes commercially allocated to new mixed uses. And I'll talk a little bit more in a while on how we think that we can unlock that sort of potential. Next one, please. Zooming in a little bit on what we think can work for the apron and core passenger areas. We said the existing apron, which is light yellow section, expanded incrementally to the east back towards Robert, thereby creating parking spaces for the sort of airplanes that Semi are using at the moment. So there's a sort of fairly slightly larger blue squares with squiggly black lines, which just indicate that all the airplanes taxi in and out of the parking bays. That can be done incrementally as demand grows. The new terminal zone, which I've indicated, we're not talking about a massive terminal, we're talking about a terminal of the same sort of size and scale as that developed in Uzi, which we know works. New parking area, and rehabilitated access roads. Everything else substantially left where it is, but upgraded to suit the demand that evolves. Next one, please. That terminal concept was developed in 2004 by a local architect who was right here in School Dallas. We managed to get hold of it from him. And surprisingly enough, or maybe not so surprisingly, what was conceived then, nearly 20 years ago, meets the spec of what's needed right now. So either by coincidence or by divine providence, we sort of have the basic planning of the landside infrastructure work. I don't know how much more there is. Next one, please. Again, for the uninitiated, what sort of airplanes would this master plan be able to accommodate? Bottom left is what's flying here already. We're not anticipating anything much bigger, much more demanding. Both certainly Semi and Airlink have got airplanes in their fleet that could accommodate services. There are probably a couple of other registered airlines who are flying below the radar figures who've got airplanes that operate quite happily into place. So we don't need to look at grand infrastructure expansion other than the terminal. And the general aviation planes where you've seen it there. Let's quickly look at how the 66 hectares breaks down. As I said, 42 hectares, first column, for the runways, taxiways, apron, road, vacant areas. Half a hectare for the terminal, half a hectare for the parking area, 5.2 hectares for the old GA precinct expanded, 3.9 for the new GA precinct, 8.6 that I spoke about, blue zone on the south, and 5.4 next to the airport access road on the 66 hectares. If you apply, and we'll talk to the town planning people in due course, but if you apply normal town planning principles with the sorts of densities that would normally apply to these things, total development area in terms of potential for use, just over 100,000 square meters. Right, how do we do it? We've done some financial analysis, we've done some business analysis, cost benefit analysis. The one being, what does the business of the airport look like in terms of pure numbers? And the other one being, what would the benefit of the community be in terms of employment and job creation? Different things, but we need to look at them together. And we have the next one. So the financial analysis, we said, what are the revenue projections look like for the airport in terms of the so-called aeronautical revenues, which is revenues the airport derives from the handling of aeroplanes and passengers. Look at the operating costs of the airports, and we look at the capital requirements to create the infrastructure. Then we look at the council benefits case, what I call social and economic benefits. So what are the economic benefits of having an airport? And these benefits are not necessarily jobs made for people who work in the airport in 20, 30 hours. So-called indirect and derived benefits of what the airport might mean, and the people moving through the airport might mean to the local economy in terms of tourism, accommodation, etc. What sort of jobs we create in the local economy? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the institutional options, how we get there. Next one, please. So in these analysis, for the pessimistic scenario was 50,000 pounds. And we did some rough work and said we probably need an initial investment of about 15 million initially, with probably another 7 million by year 10. That would be applied acre rehabilitation, expansion, first phase of terminal development, just to handle 50,000 pounds, parking area, security, and some infrastructure. And then as we become more aggressive through the expected and optimistic scenarios, obviously we're using capital. So we said 40 million, expected 60 million for the optimistic. That 60 million correlates quite well with the 71 million that's spent in Ukuzi, and I've seen what they've done with Ukuzi. It's good. Next one, please. That's what the revenue situation looks like. Based on the numbers that we got from council, our current revenue line on the base case is probably somewhere between 3 and 3.5 million, projected through to the end of the next financial year, which is March or June, I'm not sure. That is almost entirely attributable to passenger service fees, landing fees, but taking into account the fact there's an incentive in place whereby the scheduled service operator doesn't pay passenger service fees. But under the base case, that doesn't grow. That lines for the next 20 years. So revenue potential for the airport, if we do nothing, 3.5 million a year, tops. If you look at how it multiplies out through the three scenarios, we can grow our revenue from anywhere from about 7 million a year by 2042 to over to 27 million a year. And that's aeronautical plus non-aeronautical. The moment you drive your passenger numbers, so you capitalize the development of non-aeronautical. Suddenly, sorry, speaker.
Just a reminder,
Okay, I'm
wrapping up time.
another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Happy. So these things feed on each other. Let's take the next one, then the operating costs. Again, as we sit here right now, it's quite difficult to pull out the exact attributable operating costs. But the airport operates at a financial loss. So of revenue of about 3.5 million, we think our operating costs are close to 4 million, and they will continue to escalate to about 4 million to 5 million by 2042. So it's a financial drain. Obviously, the cost will increase and escalate through the various different scenarios, but as economies of scale kick in, so the curves you can see flatten off. So let's go to the next one, because I'll show you what the operating margins look like. This is where the effective growth is most noticeable. On the base case, forget about it. Forget about it. It's not worth doing nothing. Whereas on the expected, the optimistic scenario, as the growth kicks in, so the potential for operating margins also kicks in. So by the time we get to 2042 on the optimistic scenario, we've now got an operating margin of close to 14 million a year, which allows whoever's operating the airport or running a business to at least cover his costs. May not make returns on equity on 70 or the 60 million that's been invested, but there's certainly the operating budget works. Let's look at the next one. As I've said at the moment, we need to diversify the revenue base. The bias at the moment is what we've got now, which is the aeronautical revenues. We have got non-aeronautical revenues at the airport. The potential to develop them just by doing small things, selling fuel, property-related stuff, and then additional non-aeronautical service stuff, car rentals, etc., is the difference in the early years between 3 million revenue and probably up to about 6 million revenue. That's the total scenario. The next slide is the optimistic scenario. It looks worse, isn't, because it's a totally different scale. This is a scale of up to 30 million, whereas the previous slide was only about 14 million. The short-term potential of almost doubling your revenue base is the difference between operating deficits and operating surpluses. Our only challenge there is how we fund these things. And that's where the next slide comes in. This is a fairly complicated, but what I've tried to do here is show the business case versus the benefits case. So I talk about closure just now, but on the base case, for 47,000 packs, the council benefits case in terms of job creation or whatever is not even worth talking about. So the net 20-year net present value on economic cost is negative. Business NPV is negative. The thing crashes and burns. Doing nothing is not an option. On the pessimistic case, we grow nearly 100,000 passengers. The council benefits case, in terms of the impact of the local economy, now has an NPV of 18 million. Business has a negative NPV of 9 million. So we're about 9.5 million to the good if you combine those two cases. But we've created 218 jobs. by 2042. And the situation gets increasingly better as we move down to the expected optimistic scenario. So, yes, we can so drive this that we're generating 300,000 passengers by 2042. That benefits the case to council. It's an NPV of 269 million. Business is minus 59 million. That's simply because the businesses have to invest 60 million capex in it. But we've created over 2,000 jobs in the local economy. As I said earlier, most of those are indirect and private jobs. But clearly, somewhere between the expected opportunities is the workers. Next one, please.
Sorry, sir. Can I allow you one more, then we will move? Are you closing up?
I think it's 2 slides left. So I do need to finish it because this is the important stuff for this council. As I said, the job creation. You look at that, you can see that if we hang in there and we are positive about this vision, that's where the major benefits in terms of job creation. Next one, please. How do we do it? The report contains a number of recommendations on how we think we can realize this vision. The initial recommendation, first of all, that council needs to decide whether the airport is important or not. If the council decides the airport is no longer important, it sells the land. We deal with the flat from the communities. We no longer have air connectivity and we no longer have the potential to create 2,000 jobs. That's the bottom line, that's the hard end. And council will probably generate about, it was the first line of the previous slide, the council might generate 20 to 25 million rand, the sale of the land, and then we're out. There might be some sort of future rates and taxes, but the airport is no longer part of our plans. That's the worst case scenario. If we buy into the vision that the airport has got this potential, then the way to do it in terms of the MSA and the MFA provisions is firstly to package, sell off what I call the airport's business as a going concern. What that does is it affects the full business risk transfer from council to a private sector investor business. Benefit of that is it takes this whole transaction out of the ambit of the Systems Act, Section 77%. Transferring the risk, not doing a PPP, don't need to worry about procurement policies. The consequence of that is that whoever purchases the business will be required to apply for and be granted by the CAA a new airport operator's license because it's his business. Simultaneously with that, council executes a long-term development lease on the property. So whoever buys the business also negotiates a lease with council. The reason for doing that, in our view, is that if you just sold the property to an investor without the requirement that he preserves and grows the airport, then council has got no way of monitoring how the benefits flow. So, for example, a guy could come and offer a fantastic amount for the airport. Yes, I'll grow the airport, and doesn't. You're sitting at 30,000 passengers a year, 15 years from now. What can council do in that situation? So the deal needs to be very carefully structured, because if we're now looking for support from the province or whatever to build the terminal, we have to so negotiate these deals that everyone has bought into the same vision. So the airline, general aviation community says, guys, we need to be driving towards the 300,000 passengers. It's not acceptable to be sitting at 30,000. If the vision is 30,000 passengers a year, my advice to council would be close up shop, sell the site. That's the bad news. So that's what it's 4, 5, 6, and 7. First of all, have to sell the business simultaneously with the execution of this. The lease must include development rights and the service property to allow the investor to generate some sort of returns on his investment. The developments must comply with the master plan and obviously all relevant bylaws, SAM standards. And we need to come up with an innovative infrastructure funding model. That's all in the documentation. Speaker, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, what I said is, we might escape the section 76, 77, and 7. Escape the asset transfer rules. So the process whereby we do this has to be very, very carefully thought. And our advice would be, let's sit down before we do anything more. Provincial Treasury, and possibly with National Treasury, but I don't think it's necessary, and the Provincial Department of Transport to see what options there are. Some sort of infrastructure funding support in the same way that our colleagues at KZN have done. Speaker, that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Speaker. The market, I was looking for a picture that changes this airport similar to what market is doing, but then said that
It's similar to that, MS.
Thanks, Speaker. Speaker, the process to be followed in terms of the last council resolution is administratively to look at this now and check and call for proposals as the item. Then once that item comes, which confirms according to those proposals, for council then to look at what are the options that council are deciding on as presented. The presentation was done to us at senior management level. All of them so far. Our view is senior management level that we should enter into rather a long-term lease than to sell the land. When we sell the land, it's easy to get 25 million. Now we've got that cash in the bank. Then we have lost in terms of other potential rights that we would want to happen around that land. We put some conditions in terms of other rights that people must develop business centers around that airport, and in each of those growth in terms of those business centers, we then still have rather the income coming over years than to get the funds of 20 or 25 million now and then utilize it for other basic services issues. But the item will come in council. There's no final decision. We're still going to trash it at management level. Of course, we're going to try and get provincial and national treasury seek. I just want to say what made this to work for KZN is what John has said. Was he has counted, I think, 5, 6 airports now, and even the ones like Margate and Kuze, looks like small airport, but they are operating very well. Is the support of both 3 provincial government departments and national treasury to make it actually viable. So there is an opportunity so that people they don't fly to PE and still drive 2 hours this side. But there are a lot of things that we have to make it viable for us to actually compete with PE. Thanks, Speaker. So the item will come, I'm sure, in the next council meeting, where council affirmed then the decision we want proposals, and we finalize the proposals. But I think because we are going to December, the own proposal in December, we'll have to try thinking a lot of extended, not an advert of 60 days, but probably 90 days, considering that you almost in December. That's all from my side, Speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. No questions further? No presentation from the floor? Councillor Kapai, then Amen, then Mr. Mayor.
I thought, Speaker, you were going to first give councillors to ask questions first. Because why, what's the use of this presentation coming here? And yet councillors are keeping quiet. Speaker, one thing that I was, but I heard you say, because you said the worst case scenario is to sell land. So I really concur with you that we can't sell people's land. It's an indictment if we can do that. And moreover, I thought, as I was listening, I thought you were going to give us advices. What must we do? Because we are novice in terms of, because when you were speaking there, you were like talking physics and maths to me. You see, so I thought you were going to explain to people who don't know how does an airport operate. Because I can tell you as councillors, what we know is that we want that airport to create jobs. We want that airport to work to full capacity, so that the spin-offs that will be happening can then also benefit the municipality. We're a small municipality and we only rely on tourism. So I thought you were going to give us advice so that we can be sharp when we are dealing with this issue. We must be sober-minded and take a decision that is going to benefit the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for arranging this presentation. It's clear what we need to do is to use the airport to benefit the municipality. At the moment, I think we're probably putting more money into the airport than any revenue that we're getting. And I think it's important that we hold on to the property, but have an operator that at least operates the airport, that it doesn't cost the municipality any money, but brings in the benefit, the economic benefit to the town. That at least by keeping the property, we can get an income from the lease, and we get the benefit of someone operating the airfield professionally to grow the business and to bring the tourism in. So I think it's a presentation that we must take notice of, and it gives us an idea that we should be rather leasing it or having it run by someone that knows the aircraft business.
Are you deciding now?
Sorry?
Are you deciding now?
So I thank the gents for the presentation, and yes, it's something we need to look at going forward, that we get someone to run the airport.
Thank you. I will allow you, John, and then we'll move.
Speaker, to respond to the Honourable Mayor and the Councillor, the comments illustrate that switch for green one. Gentlemen, you understand the issue perfectly. One, the airport is an important economic asset. You don't have an airport, you don't create jobs. It's that simple. So having the airport is a non-negotiable in our view. How we do it, I could spend a lot of time, but I won't because I know the time pressure, Mr. Speaker. But the notion of selling the business, which then transfers the risk of operating the business to a specialist, is exactly what Mayor has appreciated, but retaining the land under council ownership with a lease that allows council to generate some benefit in future as the traffic grows, sensible. The unfortunate reality of airports is that airports can never make a financial profit. And that simply is because of the tariff structures at airports that allows them only to earn money per passenger that departs or per airport that arrives is highly regulated by the AXA regulator. So you can't have a situation where you have a small private airport or a municipal airport that's charging landing fees or passenger service fees on a scale that's much higher than AXA. Doesn't work. So that's why I say the revenue base for this airport is sitting at 3 to 3.5 million a year. The only way to improve the financial situation is to grow the traffic. Your operating costs stay much the same. So if I fly 10 aeroplanes into Plek per day, it doesn't cost me much more to operate the airport than if I fly in one aeroplane per day. I've got the same security people, I've got the same admin staff, I've got the same fire and rescue capability. So growth is the key. But the benefits don't sit at the airport. Benefits sit in the community. Benefits sits in the local economy. Benefits sits in the jobs that we create in the tourism industry down here, not up there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Are we all clear?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now.
You can excuse John.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just stretch break.
In the order of business, we will continue with point 8. Point 8 is the items for information, which has been dealt with by the executive mayor in terms of delegated authority. Mayor?
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, the items that were dealt with was the revenue management report for September, section 71 report for September. The reports are available that we dealt with in MPAC.
Thanks, Mayor. We will move to point 9. It is the partial implemented council resolutions. Councillors, you would note that it was circulated separately due to the fact that the system upgrade. Those, I think you have received it. Is there any point you want to raise under the implemented resolutions? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Speaker. I noticed it has been tidied up and many things have been removed. But I just want to appeal to the admin to make sure that it is kept up to date. There are still 1 or 2 items that are recent. For instance, the rental of land for car farm in Ponakatula that's still in here, but that's been dealt with. But certainly an improvement of what it was, but we need to keep it up to date.
Thank you, Mayor. But that said, we'll move to point 10. Councillor Kolwabi?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, especially to those things, the updates of the progress of the things that are supposed to be done. I was a bit perturbed with the fact that you'll find that the percentage of how far other things are not stated, especially with the report of the town planning. I think everything was just 0%. You don't find any updates when it comes to, it's as if, I think that one. When I read it, you'll find that something will say is in progress, but on the other side, you don't get any percentages, how far it is and what is the standing. For me, that report, I couldn't swallow it well. You know what I mean? Whereas compared it to other departments, especially community department, you'll find that you find reports and the percentages and the progress. At least you know things are dealt with. And especially in that town planning thing, there are things that are very much crucial that we're looking at, and you find that you don't get any percentage of the report. I don't know whether you have noticed that one. It was much more perturbing to find that kind of a report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kolope. Councillor Kamkam?
Sorry, Speaker, I just noticed now that Councillor Kolwapi has raised a point. I've seen that on some of those items, there's already standing council resolution. So we've dealt with some of those items. So the system needs to be updated. It's the problem. So they cannot send a report to us without updating it on the system, because then it won't reflect.
Thanks, Councillor Kamkam. We will then go into the non-delegated matters, portfolio of index, under section 1. This is the office of the municipal manager. First item, it is item C, stroke 1, stroke 92, stroke 09, stroke 22, the 2022 to 2023 monthly departmental SDPUP report. You would find the item on page 28 to 68. Item is now serving. Councillor Kamkam?
Thank you, Speaker. I propose that we take note of the report.
Councillor Olivier?
Second, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Olivier. Next item, it is item C, stroke 1, stroke 93, stroke 09, stroke 22, the 2022 to 2023 monthly departmental SDPUP report for August 2022, page 69 to 109. Item now serving. Mayor?
Thank you, Speaker. I note at least we're starting to get green and dark blue box filled in on a monthly basis than we used to have. And it's good to see this report monthly. But what is concerning to me is on page 91, for instance, a lot of red marks appearing under HR. On page 95 under engineering, a lot of not met as well as for waste on page 107 and integrated human settlements on page 108. So I want to say thanks to all the departments that are actually getting us the greens and the dark blues. We need to make an effort to make sure that those that at the moment are not performing according to what they should be, make an effort to make sure that we reduce the number of reds and start getting greens every month in those departments. With that, I will speak with the recommendation.
Proposed by Mayor. And Councillor Nell?
I'll second, Speaker.
You wanted to second, Councillor Kolope? Apologies. Third item. It is item C, stroke 1, stroke 95, stroke 10, stroke 22, draft policy, burial or cremation of destitute persons in exceptional cases relating to the deceased. You would find the item on 110 to 130. Item now serving.
Speaker,
Councillor Nell, Councillor Olivier.
I propose that we go with the recommendation.
I second it.
Seconded by Councillor Olivier.
This
Councillor?
point of order, I would still like to remind you, when you get the proposal over, you also look at this side so that you can find time to speak. Just a reminder, a friendly one, that you still do according to the order of the council.
Yes, Councillor, but don't do this then. Backwards. In forward, up straight and take short.
Still needs to look on.
I look at your specs, man. I can't take my eyes off your specs. So I will recognize you regularly. Don't worry. You have beautiful specs. Next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 96, stroke 10, stroke 22. The draft policy for the Mayor Special Fund in terms of Section 12 of the Municipal Finance Management Act. You would find the item on page 131, 147. Item now serving. Councillor Nell, Councillor Olivier, Councillor Polwapi.
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation.
Proposed by Councillor Nell,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Olivier. Next item, item C, stroke 1, stroke 97, stroke 10, stroke 22. The draft policy, granting aid policy. You would find the item on page 148 to 180. Item now serving. Councillor Nell,
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation.
Councillor Olivier,
A second.
seconded by Councillor Olivier. The next item, it's item C, stroke 1, stroke 98, stroke 10, stroke 22. The Bitou Municipality Revised Risk Management Framework Documents 2022 to 2023, page 181 to 293. Item now serving.
Maya, are you going to talk?
Councillor Nell,
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation by the Executive Mayor.
there's a proposal by Councillor Nell. Executive Mayor,
Thanks, Speaker. I'll second.
seconded by Mayor. Next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 99, stroke 10, stroke 22. The appointment of Acting Director Financial Services for the period 1 October 2022 until 30 November 2022. You will find the item on page 294 to 296. Item now serving. Councillor Olivier, Councillor Nell,
Speaker, I go with the recommendation.
Councillor Nell,
Second, Speaker.
next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 101, stroke 10, stroke 22. The Municipal Public Accounts Committee report on irregular expenditure of 2021, 2022, and 21 to 2022 financial years. Page 297 to 340. The item is now serving. Councillor Kolopi.
Thank you, Speaker, to allow me to talk about the MPAC report. I wanted to say if we can just notice why we've got Annexure A and Annexure B. And I find it so compelled to explain more, especially that Mayor at some stage felt that there are things that needs to be done explicitly, investigations or whatever. So I'm just here to say, whatever we do it taking into cognizance the legislature and every conditions or situations that took place. So today we're presenting as MPAC a report of 2020/2021 and also the report of 2021/2022. It was the things that were referred by the council to us through the recordings of SCM and also some other things that were picked up along the way. I would say this council should not be alarmed by the things that were write-off because they were coming from COM F11 of 2020/2021 and ComF 11 2021/2022. The ones of ComF 11, they were worth 21.4 million. The one of 2021/22, they were worth 30.1 million. What is ComF, to explain for our council to understand why we write off? ComF 11, it's more of a misinterpretation of law that or legislation that was done by the council. In this case, it is the misinterpretation that was done across the district by the bid adjudicating committee, where they were supposed to sit, the maximum of them 4 to 5 in the committee, but they use a leeway of a majority sitting of the directors, whereas the Auditor General made it clear that they were supposed to sit all of them, 5 of them. So hence then when we're looking the consequences, in fact, the situation and the reasoning of that was classified as an irregular. It was because it was something that all across the district, all of them, they interpreted it. It's a misinterpretation. And normally what we're looking at was the money well spent, was the value for money. When we looked at it, we find that all those projects were done well and there was value for money. And when we looked at consequence management, did SCM take note of that? We find that everything now, it's being done well and they are now correcting as it is expected. Then again, when you look at Annexure B, so these are falling under Annexure A, the one of ComF and the competitive bidding things, especially when you go into legal aspects, things were mostly write-off, and most of the things were said it is because of the competitive bidding that was not followed. Most of the things there, it was done through the instruction that was given by UMM by those time, and those service providers became the sole provider of the moment because all the panel of attorney that took place, their contract was fall off. Some were elected because they were specializing in the service that was needed in the MM or political office. It was something that was beyond us to look at, and not beyond to look at, but it was a justifiable reason that was provided in front of us. And we looked at the value of money. There were reports, there was value of money, and even on that, on consequence management, we reported that those things we must try to avoid them. And we find that the main reason at some of the things that caused the irregular, it was because of the contracts that were not renewed. Some of them reasoned it was because of the incomplete or ambiguous specifications that were done by EBSC committee, bid specific committee. And I think when we look at the report of the SCM, they find it's something that they're going to deal with it intensely. And that makes us to be proud to say that we have written those things off. And if we look at Annexure B, okay, before we go to Annexure B, again to Annexure A, there were things that were written off because of the declarations. We find that Auditor General got a system that is called, I think we kept CAAT, that is very much advanced than the system that SCM is using, where it picks up any type of relative or people that are linked, or even with the companies that people are no longer sharing together, that declaration. And when you get there to SCM, promise to do a roadshow or SCM department and human resource. So that one is still on the pipeline. But those things, when we look at it, reason that we write off, it is because they are not affecting the awarding processes. Those people that were not finally declared, they were not part of the awarding process with SCM. It's only relatives, or they were together, people that are working at waste, people that are working at some, departments that are not at all related. Whereas there were some situations of ComF 8, and those situations of declaration, we call them ComF 8. There were situations of ComF 26 where a certain individual, a certain person at SCM was involved with a certain company that it was not even that company that was giving service, but because that they once had a company that they shared together before even that person included or affected was working at the Bitou. But because of the advanced system of OAG is able to pick up those kind of things. But we are working on that, and we believe that SCM will work more and entrench the freedom of declaration with the service providers. Then again, we go to ComF, to Annexure B, where it was more of the cases that we referred them back. And it was cases that came that were already under investigation. So we have referred them under investigation. So we believe that more information will come out on that. It will come back to us as to MPAC, and also to the council will report on those cases to the council. So in that case, I'm saying we present this report and we also bringing a recommendation that this council should accept that we write off the Annexure A incidents, and also we refer those that are under Annexure to investigation. Fortunately, we've already established our disciplinary committee. Things are happening, and there was a first sitting of it. We're proud to know that there was a first sitting. So in that case, we are saying we present this report with no fault, hoping that it will be accepted. Over to you.
I must thank you for all your hard work. I think it is well deserved for all your efforts, you and the team. And for me, personally, being following council, I think in my time, it's impressive that you have presented here. Thank you very much. I think you deserve applause. Thank you very much, Councillor Kolope. Let's give a round of applause. Before the efforts, Councillor Kolope, I think that's a proposal from you that we note and go. I just want to make sure is that proposed as well, Councillor Kolope, on this item?
Yes, it has been proposed well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, I must agree. We're very well done and very informative. I think part of your recommendations, not in the report though, is that supply chain follows their procedures correctly so that we don't have to investigate a lot of things that are really unnecessary because it's, you know, the municipality received the benefit for it, but just the procedures that weren't followed. I'd also just like to see that when we do the report, for instance, in your Annexure A, that we give a total of what's written off, just to give us an idea around that. So just like to recommend for your future reports, and also the total for what is being referred for investigation, just for information. So with that, I'll second the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Seconded by the Executive Mayor. Next item, it is item C, stroke 1, stroke 102, stroke 10, stroke 22. The Municipal Council recess in delegation in Executive Mayor for the period of December 2022 to 8 January 2023. You would find the item on page 341 to 342. Item now serving. Councillor Nell, Councillor Olivier.
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation.
Proposed by Councillor Nell.
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Olivier. Next item, item C, stroke 1, stroke 103, stroke 10, stroke 22. The progress report establishment of Bitou Junior Town Council. You would find the item on page 343, 351. Item now serving. Councillor Nell.
Speaker, I propose that we take note of the report.
Councillor Adamson.
The question, Speaker, am I understanding it that they are requesting for colleges to be included as well?
Originally, it was the proposal in the council resolution, but during presentations or meetings with the various schools and things, it would come forth that we readjust our approach for the H and the councils and the colleges, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Proposed by Councillor Nell.
Second that, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Olafir. Next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 104, stroke 10, stroke 22. The appointment of a councillor to the vacant councillor position on the Finance and Corporate Service Portfolio and Municipal Public Accounts Committee. You would find the item on 352 to 355. The item is now serving. Councillor Nell.
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation and appoint Councillor Harms to both the vacancies.
Proposed by Councillor Nell. Councillor Olafir.
I'll second that, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Olafir. It deals then with the office of the municipal manager under section 1. If we have an addendum, we have an addendum. It is the Bitou organizational macro structure, item C, stroke 1. Let's go. Yes. Stroke 1, 105, stroke 10, stroke 22. The item is now serving. Councillor Nell.
Speaker, I propose that we accept the proposal and go with the recommendation of the manager.
Proposed by Councillor Nell. Councillor Olafir.
I'll second that, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Olafir. Next section. Section 2. Finance. First item is the item C, stroke 2, stroke 69, stroke 09, stroke 22. Report on the implementation of the supply chain management policy to the executive mayor for the 2021-2022 financial year. Find the item on page 357 to 369. The item is now serving. Executive Mayor. Then Councillor Polo, is your hand up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know it's a report on the previous financial year, but I'd like to highlight some things in the problem statement, page 368. It says, in terms of this report, it can be assumed that there are challenges in supply chain management process, which in many instances are similar to the previous financial year. And that's something that Councillor Kawapi alluded to in the impact report as well. And then many of the previous year's recommendations have not been fully implemented, i.e. contract management, supply performance, filling of vacancies, storage space for logistics, improvement of the FlexGen system. And currently the supply chain functions are fragmented through the various departments, and not all officials are conversant with the latest legislation and directives. So if we're not conversant with the legislation, we can't be doing things correctly, and that could be why impact sits with the problems it sits within having to go through everything. And it's just concerning that this report, it's not the first year that it's been highlighted by the Auditor General, and we need to make sure that we start implementing. It also says it's recommended that the responsibility and accountability by contract managers on contract management to ensure uniform compliance as well as effective delivery by suppliers, as this has been the finding for the past 2 years. So we're not improving, we're getting the reports from the AG and we're just ignoring it. Also, there were surpluses and shortages caused by lack of space, as well as manual processing of requisitions. And that was regarding the stores that needs to be increased as well. So I think we need to take note of these problem statements and not just take note of a report and file it and not look at it again. We need to make sure that we're implementing what is said in here. So with that, I'd like to propose that we go through the recommendation from Mako. I'll propose that. Thank you.
And I'm just going to give to the councillors. Councillor Kolopi, then Councillor Kamka.
Thank you, Speaker. I think Mayor have also nailed down the things that I've noticed. That I'm a bit disappointed that we don't see SCM people here, because this is exactly where we need to ensure that our expertise is performing well because the SCM department finance is the pinnacle of what the Auditor General is looking. And I was thinking as well, dealing with their reports, they were supposed to hear and hear what we are saying with what we picked up. For instance, page 362.6.5. It says there have been delays in receiving back the technical evaluations reports from the project managers for an award of the RFQs. Imagine that OAG always is on the case of its turnaround in performing and implementing things. That's what makes today we always have those irregularities. The contracts fall short, fall flat, and you'll find that they even made the problem of saying project managers, they always start things 3 months before instead of starting it way before, let's say 6 months or 9 months before. They will start to work on the contract 3 months before, and after that again, things fall short, and we'll find ourselves doing it deviations, now and again deviations. Those things are there. I wanted just to know which system are they putting into place to ensure that the project managers are doing the delivery on time. And again, you go to page 363, 6.6, where it says percent of subcontracts awarded to SMEs enterprise. You will see the other year it was 2%, and the next year I think it was 4%. I was much more concerned with that because we're here to develop our local product, our local people. And if it says the SME enterprises, they were just 2% and it moved to 4%. What system are they ensuring that SMEs are being improving, especially into big contracts of the infrastructure? Because we need to make people to learn more, the skills of knowing they are down, so that we can save less to the revenue to always bring people outside. And again, page 364 to 365, there are a lot of deviations that were recorded, especially into community services. I understand it's a department that deals with a lot of emergencies, but can our director and the staff look at that and see how can we reduce to those millions of deviations that are recorded, are captured into that department? And I can even see that when it comes to finance and other departments, they deal well. There are less deviations there, but even in cooperatives, there are a lot of deviations. It starts with community, goes to corporate services. We need to look very deep into those departments. We look and see what is it that we can avoid for deviations. There was also a comment at page 366.16 that says, EE-tender portal, it's always offline. I wanted to know who controls that e-tender portal. What makes it to be offline most of the time? Is it our problem as Bitou, or whose problem is it? Because I think that's where also the whole public gets what is there instead of and getting to the supply chain board to look for the RFQs and whatever. If e-portal is supposed to be working, who must ensure that it's always up and running to avoid people to come unnecessary to down and come and check? Because even these tenders are not being shown in our public spaces like the halls in the communities. People must always come to SCM, to the board. And of which, if e-portal is the one that they need to get information, what is it that we're supposed to do best in order we ensure that people are getting information? There was a comment, I didn't know whether I must talk about it, but at page 363, where it was saying RFQs, there was something that they streamlined the RFQs so that they should not go to PSC and whatever. It must be taken immediately, the decision by the director. In order, they were doing the turnaround time so that things can be more to ensure service delivered. I just wanted for information's sake, what joy are we getting from that? Do we really get a turnaround strategy better? Are we not opening a can of worm of a corruption that one man's make a decision? Are we protecting ourselves well if we can streamline and, some other steps that, legislature of us have shown us that we must do it that way. It was just for interest sake when it comes to that one. Thank you. But in the midst of that, I also second the mayor for proposing to accept this report.
Thanks, Speaker. I think I just wanted to say it's not all, gloom. I'm saying so because you have to understand first that MPAC has been dealing with irregular footers and Westwood and unauthorized expenditure.
Yeah.
Which have not been dealt with. So I'm saying it's not all gloom because MPAC has reached a situation now where we can go to the Auditor General that we have dealt with 2021, 22, you know. Council issues was only last year, and we take from the evaluation of this council up until now for ML to address 3 years.
Clock.
It's not. And so it's also the one that's interesting. So particularly presented, a presentation that is done by the National Treasury in terms of how to address this issue. But Mayor, having said that, the issue of project managers being very specifications is addressed in terms of the following ways. But also we have to look at why it has not been happening. So the first issue is the procurement plan. So the procurement plan is submitted with the approval of the budget in May when the budget is approved. And in the budget workshop, we always speak, even the CFO before me, on record, we always spoke about procurement plan to other departments. If your procurement plan, start your procurement as early as possible. What we have introduced now, so that one is always been there. What we have introduced now is the monthly SDVIP. Because what has been the challenge, you as council, you will only see it after 3 months. And then you say it must improve. After 6 months, it has not improved. And you are unable to actually do the oversight immediately so that we actually address that situation. That's why we introduced the monthly SDVIP and the managers sign performance so they've got training and understand the performance system now. And then we already provided Mayor the training. I'm not too concerned. I'm very confident that we've provided to all managers and people who are on procurement with 2 trainings on SCM processes. I must say, it's sometimes a technical space in terms of legal interpretation, but we did provide comprehensive training to the staff, and they've signed attendance registers so that people, they don't claim, say, I didn't know, I was not aware. The filling of vacancies, so most of those critical positions, I think they're advertised. I'm just not sure whether internally or externally they're advertised. That's one of the challenges which I think MPAC has also questioned and addressed, because those people have been seconded in those positions for almost more than 2 years, you know, which was wrong, because you are taking these specific persons and leave the work where you are employed. By taking you now and second you to do that work, and then we'll get people outside to do the work that you are supposed to be doing. That stopped. It might not be a popular decision for everyone, effectively end of September. I'm saying if you're in your position, you do your work the normal way. Why are we having an acting policy if people are not going to act in positions that are higher than them, but they will be taken out of their position to get the full benefits of being seconded, you know, and not give an open process to everyone. So that's why I've stopped that process. Those people are no longer seconded. So they are from their position, they will act in that position, because it created a culture and a situation of indoyam. I don't know how to put it in this, in my thing, you know, it created that thing by it's my thing now, you know, and once then you have said, no, you must act, you must not be seconded. It creates that problem. People are starting to be unhappy, and staff, obviously, that is unhappy at work. You know, it will create also issues of productivity, but that matter has been addressed. The audit action plan has always been there. What I like about MPAC, Mayor and Speaker now is the issue of consequence management. It makes my work very easy. because your audit action plan is always there. If you look at the audit action plan of the last 4 years, all the issues that have been raised by the Auditor General, they are put in there. And then it says how we must address those issues. But where council and senior management in terms of oversight role was to look at what management said we're going to do, whether they did that work, and perhaps Councillor Olifieri, that's what needs to be addressed in the dispute tomorrow on performance bonuses and everything. If you look at the new process in terms of SDVIP, we're not going to even have disputes in terms of performance bonus. You will know that if they have not performed. You will know if we have performed. It's not going to be really an issue of dispute. When it's red, it's red. You have not performed that work, So those matters have been put in place. I will allow the CFO to speak on the e-tender portal. I was not aware that it is giving problems. The turnaround streamline. I'm asking Councillor Troy, Speaker, that I must look at that. The chairperson of MPAC is actually correct, and I can see the trainings that she has attended. Because if you're saying you are streamlining, it means you are putting me to control every quotation that is from A to J. So it's only me who deal with those quotations. So there's an element of risk there that I will actually contact only the people that I want to contact, but I don't have the details. The CFO can touch on it in terms of how they streamline, but I would want to look at it myself. Thanks, Speaker.
Thanks, Mr. Lothar.
Thank you, Speaker. I can ensure the councillors that the supply chain management section is listening through myself in this, so we are exactly hearing what you're saying. Nonetheless, I would just like to highlight a few things on the local economic development portion of it. Of course, we know that the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act was declared unconstitutional, so we are waiting for the new legislation to come to the fore to give us some direction, but we need to still read it with our own policy in supply chain with regards to what we aim to do with regards to economic empowerment in our policy. When it comes to the e-tender portal, we're saying it is offline many times, and so be it. It is. It seems it must be a cousin of Eskom, but it is definitely a national department, state-controlled entity that is failing us in this instance as well. Yet it is not always down, so we do advertise our things on the e-portal, and it is accessible. In the end, we do get it right to put the advertisements on there, of course. I can assure you that the supply chain management section is really bending over backwards to accommodate everything. It is unfortunate that the procurement processes did not start earlier, and that is part of the delays in the processes is the bottleneck that has now been experienced. What we highlighted in the staff as well in this report is, those are the challenges of prior years, and we do trust that with the adoption of the new organogram, that we can at least now solve all those issues where people have been carried against positions for 3 years without having permanency and security of tenure. So we are definitely looking at those. I don't know if I miss anything, but I think that is in short. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lothar. That covers the explanation. The item is closed. So therefore, we will continue to the next item. I have to listen one more time. Yes. Right. Now, a lot of things, it's always the past 3 years, past. Let's continue to the next item. Item C, stroke 3, stroke 72, stroke 10, stroke 22. A report on the implementation of the supply chain management policy for the first quarter, 1st July to 30 September 2022, page 370 to 341. The item is serving. Councillor Kamkam.
Please take us to the recommendations. Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, when we discussed this item in the finance portfolio, one thing that came up was, as we can see, that the tender for the security services has been awarded, for the next 3 years. And we did get the explanation from the acting CFO that the amount that is stated there, it is just an estimate, the estimate value of the tender. However, when we discussed, we felt that councillors seldom get a chance to have their input or their say as to where security services are needed. And also, we sometimes do not know and understand how these assessments are being done as to where to place securities. Also, in terms of what type of protocols are being followed in cases of vandalism and whether securities guards are actually being skilled to carry out their task. Councillor Manaba also mentioned, for instance, that in some instances, some securities might be at risk because we get instances where ladies are being placed in the evenings to guard a whole building all by herself, and those type of things. So we added extra recommendation, and that is recommendation number 3 that was accepted by the MACO. That a security assessment be performed to determine the level or the type of security needed, and that figures be provided in respect of the number of security guards assigned to each municipal asset and be submitted to the next meeting. Thank you. I propose that we go with the recommendation.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, okay, Councillor, I did see you, and thank you, Councillor Aramta, and then the Executive Mayor.
Thank you, Speaker. On page 372, the second last one, call for development proposals on Earth 4131. Let me go by. Can you just tell me what is the 1.7 billion being spent on? Thank you.
Councillor?
Stupid question.
No.
Thank you.
I like you already.
On page 372.
Second last item.
It's highlighted.
The market.
There again?
Speaker, this is the development at the back where the tender has been awarded to market on May. So we're talking about the property behind the council chamber.
Okay. There's one at the back. What is it for? It's the rental.
The question from Councillor is rather, though we're not spending 1 point, have they tendered 1.7 to lease this property to us?
Paying themselves.
We're not spending anything.
No.
Much it was a monthly rental for the period of, I think it was 4 years. So we need to check the figures just to make sure, but I assume it comes to that amount over a period of time.
It's the rental. Who was renting? Let's follow this.
That's the,
Aramta, you answered?
it's the anticipated rental we're going to get for the property for the lease period.
Covered.
Yes, Speaker, if I, sorry to interject.
Just a
but that
moment,
is-
just a moment. Just a moment. Okay, I did see your hand is up. Mr. Lothar?
Yes, Speaker, that is what the mayor said is correct. That is the anticipated rental over the total rental period for the property. So it's not something that we're paying, it's something that we're receiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lothar. The Executive Mayor, then Councillor Raba.
I should know. Thank you. Should know.
Thank you, Speaker. What I wanted to say before seconding the proposal is that we need to remember this is the first quarter report, and we've just been speaking on the impact report about supply chain not planning properly and not doing things in time. This is a case where they have been doing the planning, and a lot of these tenders are not payments that have been made, but payments we anticipate making over a period of the next 2 or 3 years while that tender is in process. So like Councillor Kamka mentioned, the 23 million rand security contract, that's what the tender was for. It's still to be paid as they render the services. We may not even spend that amount, but it allows us now to procure things without having irregular expenditure and those sort of findings that then need to go to MPAC and then make Councillor Kawampi's life a misery while she's busy trying to sort it out. So with that, I will second the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor, do you wish to continue?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm not sure whether I'm the only one noticing this, but it's as though when we are being furnished with the reports that we require at council, there's just an item added to the pages. When you pounce on a person with regards to an item or a note on it, officials are caught not ready. I'm not sure whether there's an understanding that once we're given numbers, we will just second and move on. Part of our role is oversight, and for us to be able to do that, we need to be fed with the right information. For me, it doesn't sit well with me that they're not just the only ones in this meeting, but the entire community is actually watching. And we are caught between, I think, I am not sure. And this has been recurring in this space. I urge that the very same concerted efforts we actually make to prepare for council, officials should also be held accountable. They need to be ready and they need to sit here and be with us. There's items that we actually find ourselves discussing where the actual person that is supposed to be giving answers is actually not sitting in the room or not even signed on. I understand that our meetings are usually on the last day of the month or end of the month. It's not Christmas, it's not a holiday. We are at work and we would expect the officials to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor I do take note that you take note and then you will act on that to make sure that officials is prepared to answer on the questions in council. Thank you. Just to confirm that the item has been proposed by Councillor Kamkam and then seconded by the Executive Mayor. We will move on. Item C, stroke 2, stroke 73, stroke 10, stroke 22. The proposed amendment to Indigent Senior Citizens and People with Disability Policy. It is on page 402 to 465. Councillor Mhlana, Councillor Kamkam.
Yeah, thanks, Speaker. Maybe we must just stop being cowards and go and tell people that what is this? Smart water meters are implementing it, regardless of what their views is. Because this thing of smuggling, I will call it smuggling for lack of a better word, smuggling the implementation, well, this is smuggling the implementation. We're waiting for when this was here presented, we asked some questions. When Francine, the then manager, visited IDP meetings, this thing was rejected. And those questions which we have asked are not yet being answered even today. We know that the previous council bought these smart water meters, these devices, without thoroughly doing a proper public participation. I have not seen, we've requested from our Section 80 meeting that we want to even see the device, a presentation of the device. It never came to our meeting. So if we're saying we're implementing this thing as council, because it's raised here also as well by one HOD, that the public participation has not been done thoroughly on this thing. And here we are, we want to implement it, and we are smuggling it. We're not going to the community and call the community and tell them that we're having a meeting now, and this meeting is going to deal with the smart water meters, and smart water meters are going to work this way. Because here it says some indigent beneficiaries, they exceed the 6 kiloliters. It's based on what? Because even where I stay, I hardly see the meter reader. So it's based on what? That some beneficiaries, they exceed the 6 kiloliters. So let's stop being cowards. Let's go to the community and tell them that we're going to implement this thing. In fact, let's vote on this thing. Who supports this and who does not support it, so that the community can understand it. Simple. Because now the way we're doing it, we're really smuggling it. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. I will stand on that. I will give to Councillor Kamkam first.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this amendment to this policy was done prior to this council meeting. I mean, the amendment to the indigent form was done prior to this council approval or council meeting. This was raised in our portfolio meeting. The forms were printed. They were out in the community. Staff members were busy engaging with indigent customers, telling them to sign these forms or they will not qualify for the indigent subsidy. Now, this raised a very big concern because, as councillor has just said, that we have on numerous occasions spoke about the public participation. But remember, public participation at that point was to introduce the smart meters to the communities and also talk to the benefits of these meters for both the customer as well as the municipality, and also to educate the customers how this meter will work. It did not speak to the amendment in the indigent policy. So let's just be clear on that. Number two, after we elaborated on this issue in the portfolio and also in MICA, we have then discovered that at this point in time, the smart meter is still a conventional meter. We do not have the budget. We do not have the software to actually implement this successfully. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do in this case? There's no point in us going through all of these processes, but we are not institutionally, we are not ready. So we need to make a decision on this. Speaker, and the council needs to make a decision. And that's why we basically added that recommendation, number 3, that we need a progress report of the smart water meters. It must be submitted to the portfolio meeting. And we need the following information, because at this point in time, we're not sure whether a pilot was done. Did we do the testing on these meters to say whether they are efficient? In number 1, we want to help our customers to reduce our debt control and also with leakages. So if it's not serving that purpose, then why are we doing it? So that's why we requested there under recommendation number 3. And then also we've added another recommendation under number 4. So that's the issue with these smart meters, Speaker.
Councillor Sabai.
Thank you, Speaker. You see, Speaker, all of the time, when things are not going right, it's politicians who are being. And you find out that only politicians come to this council and recommend what needs to be done. Subsequently to that, it's officials who must come back and advise and give clarity to council how these things are done. if I recall, there was no information that was talking about the software to us. We even said as council that the recommendation is that it must start to the affluent areas. I even made an example. How about also we involve councillors' housing? Then we move to public participation, because it must be us who are owning these devices first. You can't say poor people must get these devices willy-nilly, and yet as a councillor, you don't have. I don't know whether those devices have been installed to the affluent areas, but I'm hearing another story now that there's no software, there's no that. It's good news to me. It's good news to me that I'm hearing that. So that means somewhere, somehow, we are not being told the truth. Don't know whether what must we do if then officials are not implementing what council has recommended that it must be done. And moreover, who's going to be playing it? It's politicians. Because every time we hammer on saying public participation, and it's not done. Because what Councillor Mhlana is saying, that we are cowards in going to the people. Public participation is the one, we are not going to tell them at the public participation. We are going to listen to them. But ours, that is officials, must give much more information about whatever their public participation is about. I don't know how many months, years we talked about public participation, and yet officials are not doing it. Therefore, we give it back to the MM, because he's the one who looks at directors, and directors looks at their own managers. Something must be done. Thank you very much.
And I will, before I give to you, Councillor, I see him, I thought you was, I did see him, but I was thought you're going to speak to this. Mr. Lothar first, then Councillor Mhlana.
Thank you, Speaker. I just need to clarify a thing or two here. The policy that Council adopted with the budget says that all consumers who qualify for a subsidy must agree to the installation of a prepaid electricity and water meter. So Council has already showed in that policy that there were no cowards in the house. And if in arrears, be placed on restricted service levels. That is the current policy approved by the Council. The only thing we are changing is to say, let us not prepay the meters for water, but put in a water management device that is smart in reading and that can be limited if need be. We are not saying we have implemented that yet. Now, if you think of the past in where the smart technology started, it's more than 7 years ago. Smart technology meters in the municipality have been fitted already in Poortjies, 123 meters, in Keurboomstrand 116 meters, and in Beachy Head 500 meters already. The current smart meters that was purchased by the previous council, as was said, the current ones purchased by the previous council, there's 66 of them installed out of 300 that was purchased. So that is already in the ground, and no one is yet limited on anything because the policy was not written as such. And that is the only thing we are requesting, is the changing in the policy. That recommendation that included a lot to be done and the report to be sent. I am busy on that one, and that is why I'm gathering the information, and that's why I have some of the information already available for you. So we are working on it. We will present to the portfolio committee a full report on this, and then you can make a decision further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. MS,
Chair, just want to raise my hand.
just want to elaborate on that. You want to go first? Councillor Msana, continue.
Yeah, Speaker, maybe it's English. I speak Xhosa. When we were in this council meeting, we have agreed that the new development, which is only in Olweni, in my understanding, where these devices are installed. So that's the only new development that has taken place since we've taken that decision. So the subsidy we're talking about, it's only those houses in the new development. In areas where they have been existing, none of these devices have been installed, or I must be proven wrong. None of these devices are installed in Guanabutula, in New Horizon, in Grand Zoo, in Vetted Rift, in Cracks. It's only in Olweni where these devices are installed. So hence I'm saying, let's stop being cowards and tell people that we're going to install these devices, whether they like it or not. Because here in the policy, what Mr. Lothar is talking about is exactly what I'm saying, new development. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor.
No, Chair, yeah, true, I don't think, Councillor Mshana, I think you are saying a similar thing to Felix. The biggest challenge we are having is the public participation. In the meeting and the presentation which was done by Sakikaya here, that lady from Sakikaya, if you remember when she presented here, I was under the impression and made to believe that public participation was actually done before the procurement of this. And we have to get that part of public participation correctly. See, because it's going to create perception or interpretation now that you are actually saying, and I think maybe that's where Councillor is coming here, that you are putting smart water meters only for indigent people. And that was never the intention of Council. The intention was to put smart system electricity and water, but it's not now to put a prepaid system. To put a smart device that will inform the consumer if we are indigent that we have exceeded the 6 kiloliters now. If you are non-indigent, you have exceeded 6 kiloliters, so that you are aware what you have exceeded and how much you must pay on what you have exceeded. That is the smart, the latest smart metering. Because the challenge once this is perceived, and I made an example when the presentation was done. Only people, one of the reasons they went to the Human Rights Commission, it's how it was written as if this thing is actually only for indigent people. And also where to go and explain to the Human Rights Commission. So we have to get this public participation as stated by the portfolio committee completed as soon as possible before that report, the report that the acting CFO is going to bring is in detail in terms of how it works. Now, are we ready to put the smart metering? Because this is how it works. You put the smart meter, you drive like your Google map, you drive. The software that is sitting in the office through Speaker Councillor Tapai, then calculate each of those meters and tell you what is the usage. Now, for some reason, I don't understand, the software is not there, but the meters was if you are saying smart metering, you are saying you're not going to go around the metering and say that are chased by dogs. You're going to drive through either with a scooter or with a car, and then you do all the reading. That was the intention, So we have to get the issue of the software. Felix is going to give that full report. What happened? Did you buy the meters only without the software? or do we buy only both? But it's just that we have not told the service provider to bring that software. But the software is supposed to be sitting with the chief meter reader, and then he controls in terms of the readings of each and every area. Then it's also got an option to give people alert to say now you are exceeding more than that is required. So it's not a failure of council. Council has resolved. I don't think council has resolved incorrectly. Council has resolved correct. But the public participation process, we need to do it out. Unfortunately, should have done it before we purchased the meters. So we'll do the public participation in each and every ward and make it very clear in terms of that council has resolved in terms of going the smart metering route now and to each and every community and what are the benefits in terms of that. And we'll have a flyer with the pamphlet, which then explains the benefits to the community in terms of going that route. Yeah. So I will follow up to you, Speaker Councillor Tapai, in terms of the administration failure in terms of having not advised correctly in terms of this process and how we're going to rectify it. It's going to be part of that report that will come. Thanks.
Thank you, MM. Councillor Manlaba.
Thank you, Speaker. I think the accountants officer of the municipality has covered briefly what I was aiming to actually bring across. Because yes, at community level, we had mentioned that what's outstanding is at the moment is actually public participation. And the reason why it needs to be strict is that already this commitment is actually part of the form that we made our people to sign when they apply for the indigent benefit. Now, for that to actually be binding, this must be added onto the policy, hence it's called the amendment. But over and above that, I would rather, even when we do public participation, that the officials are fully equipped with every information that they require. Because it's like selling a product, and it's you need to have features and benefits of what you're bringing to people, for people to actually make an informed decision of whether or not they're going with the product. Because I can tell you now how I got to this and how I got to what I know now about what the smart metering will do in our spaces is how I had received countless complaints from elders who are actually part of my indigent list, were saying they are still not getting what they purchasing with regards to electricity. And then when I did my research at the back end as into why could that be a reason, whereas they've applied for the current year, part of that was what happens is, in as much as we have written off your account, if you go on using water over what's expected or what's provided of you as per the policy, that's when we see that that's when we see the charge on your electricity purchase. Now, unfortunately, they will go on and on complaining unless they are empowered to be able to monitor and read themselves. Now, unfortunately, we are not going to get to a level where they are empowered up until the software is available, so that there's actually there's a meaningful reason why they have the devices in their houses. So in as much as now we are actually debating the addition or the amendment rather, and the fact that there's public participation that is outstanding, the crux and what's crucial in this matter is ensuring that also the software is actually available, so that now there could be an end use and a reason why I would actually have this devices installed. But over and above that, I'm still lecturing on officials needs to be empowered with every information there is, so that when they go there, they don't speak about this from a point of judgment, but pros and cons of it, so that when the decision is made, is an informed one because they are well informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. Second, Mayor.
Councillor.
Raise your hand up. Thank you. I will allow one more debate.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to get some clarity. So in some of the new developments, for Winnie, for instance, smart meters have been installed, but they work as conventional meters at the moment.
Yeah.
So am I correct in saying that for now, there's still the process where the meter readers go and actually read the meter? So there is a reading on the meter that we can see. And at some point, if we don't have, there still hasn't been any clarity on whether we actually have the software or not. Although we've been saying it doesn't seem as if we have the software. But up until such time as we have the software, then we cannot read it electronically, we can read it manually. So if we're only going to get the software in a year's time or 2 years' time, it's not relevant to the installation of the meters at the moment because the meters work as conventional meters. So that's my understanding. I just want to check if I'm correct in that, because if that is the case now, when we get budget for the software and we get the software, then we'd only be able to implement the actual electronic reading on the meters. I just wanted clarity on whether my summation of it is correct.
Councillor.
Speaker, really, we must take a decision on this matter. I'm hearing about forms for indigent. You know, everybody who is indigent cannot object to the form because he wants to be indigent. But there is a line there that is saying we are going to install these smart meters, whereas it has not gone for public participation. The public participation is to inform people about what you are going to do. Now, if we are saying, because our people almost on meetings are saying, I'm being billed. I've never seen a municipal employee looking at my meter. They are telling us that, look, we are being robbed here. Now, if we are going then to put these smart meters conventional, is it not positive for them and for the municipality? You see? Because in few years to come, a council will take a decision about moving to prepaid. And our people need to be learned that we don't have water. One day water, this area will be a water scarce area. Why did this municipality went for desalination plants 20 years ago? It came that we will have problem with water in future. So planning this way, we are looking for future. We won't install these devices when there is no water. Let's install them now, but give them any information about this. For me, giving them forms, it's daylight robber. Because as an indigent, I will also sign because I want to be indigent. And that was wrong. It should have went for public participation first. And they must be told that even you as an indigent, you will be getting a form of this nature. Because you use your 6,000 kiloliters of water and we bill you. They don't know that they are billed because of water. They are saying electricity is very expensive because the municipality takes a portion of his or her money when he or she buys electricity. They're saying, no, municipality is robbing us. We need all our units. They don't know that they don't get primarily these units because of he has gone overboard in using water. Yes, I understand the part of when you buy electricity most of the time, you are getting punished. I put it that way, that you are being punished because you don't preserve electricity. I think public participation is the key, Speaker. It's in your office. You must run with it. Thank you very much.
Just thank you, Councillor. Also to add, yeah, this really sits a bit, gives a sour taste because of the fact that I was at a meeting and it got to my attention that this new form was just chucked on a table. And luckily someone picked it up to see the difference between the old form and the new form. Hence I raised it with the administration as well. But if I look at point one there, it's still in a form as if it only speaks to indigent people by signing for to get approved for indigent. I was worried at the time, but here we are today discussing this matters because it was just chucked on a table where people, and to add on to what Councillor Tsabai is saying, is that in most instances, we as councillors, we must, when we phone the revenue section about when someone raises a query over that says, but last month I was approved indigent, but now all of a sudden I have a 300 rand. It is the part where we as councillors explain to the consumers that you are over your 6,000. So therefore you need to watch how you use water. And I think this is where the part that it shows, it would inform the customer then to say you have exceeded. You are in the rears now because you are using an excess of water of more than your 6. So this is the debate we're having here today. I still want to leave it open and then we must roll this matter, but it had also to mention here that it was actually just one night we went to a community report back meeting and voila, it is here, but it was rejected. And I think it is needed for a proper process. I will in with the so that we can lead this in a proper way for all our communities to understand that this is what's coming. Thank you, Council. Councillor Kamka?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm not sure whether I proposed that we go with the recommendations, so I'm doing it once again.
Is your hand up, Councillor?
Hallelujah.
I will be with you now, Councillor.
Thank you, Speaker. I welcome the conversation that just transpired in this place. And the good about it is that I'm seeing a silver lining. Silver lining is in the event of the absence of the software, it allows then the team enough time to actually do public participation as thoroughly as they should. So I really second the recommendations by my portfolio.
Councillor
I need clarity, Speaker. By supporting these recommendations, I was saying we're supporting the form that has already been issued. Is that what we are saying? Because my view was that before that, we recall that form, or if it's there now already has been signed and we are approved it, it's well and good. But on the issue of public participation and take a program on this matter, fast track that, so that the communities are not confused as to what is taking place, what is happening. Because Speaker, we might sit here and take policy decisions, so forth and so on. But this is supposed to be the government of the people, by the people. People need to have a contribution and we need to consult with them so that they understand what we are implementing. Because I was also shocked when, in fact, it was a new horizon when I was called by someone and gave me this form was very short as well.
I will, MM first and you, Councillor.
Hospital,
Sorry. Councillor, do you want to go first?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to bring to the attention of this house again, like we need to go back to the item. The item says proposed amendment to indigent, senior citizen and people with disability policy. I understand that in as much as when we did policy review on the week of the 9th of February, this discussion came about and we spoke about it, and we spoke about in as much as we will have the installation done in the in the newest establishment. Part of conversation was each one of us as councillors, it should start with us. And then my further support to that was the fact that we will be able now to actually know how it works, that it's easy for when people come to us, we're able to actually do what we should be doing. This is not okaying the form that is out. I'd like to believe this is not trying to okay the form that is out, but this is a part that was left out on the equation when the policy was eventually adopted at council. This was actually an entry that was part of the amendments that were done at policy review level. I understand how distasteful or how unsure the community is with regards to this, and this is not being forced down on them. With regards to implementation, which would mean installation, it still brings about public participation. I do not want us now to treat this item for what it's not. Major premise is accepting the amendment into the policy. Minor premise is an oversight or how we overlooked public participation or how public participation was mentioned and never really done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, may I go first? I didn't see you in there.
Thank you, Speaker. We still don't have clarity on whether we can implement it or not. And I think it probably is because we cannot. So whether we install them or whether that clause is in there or not is irrelevant, because we can't do what we're saying we're going to do until we install the software. So maybe we need to add a fifth clause recommendation to say that the public will be notified when we start implementing the electronic measurements. So in other words, everything can happen, the public participation can happen, but before we actually start implementing, once we've got the software installed, we notify the public the date we're going to start implementing. And I think that then covers everything in terms of what we discussed. So even if the clause is still in the agreement and they sign it, we can't implement it anyway until we notify the public that we implement. Might be a way to get around this.
Amen.
Chair, the policy determination is sufficient if it's a form that is really if it's a form that is creating much confusion. The form can just be withdrawn through a communication. Because the policy determination on its own is sufficient. I was just double checking with the CFO because we do implement Mayor now to the new establishment, and it's not on prepaid mode because council has to still resolve on that. So we can install now, so you don't need the software. The software you can have it at a later stage, which is not going to take a year. It's going to be quick. We can do the issue of the software now with the adjustment budget that is coming end of November. The software makes it easy in terms of accurate and quicker reading. So the only issue is maybe how this amendment reads, and I was double checking now. The CFO can speak. Maybe it's saying the policy determination we have now is sufficient. It might be not necessarily urgent because either we put it there, but for all consumers, so that we don't come out as if we are talking to indigent people only, and then we make that that determination and still continue the process. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Amen. Councillor Kamkam, then Councillor Manaba.
Thank you, Speaker. I know the item is closed, but you see that's why I said in the beginning, the smart meters issue is what we dealt with in council previously. And we had the recommendations on the rollout of the smart meters. The amendment to the Indigent form is a separate thing, and the two shouldn't be confused with one another. The issue here is that customers or consumers, they don't understand what they sign for. When they sign the form, they need to be explained to them exactly what does that clause mean. That's the issue here. It's not saying that the smart meters will only be rolled out to Indigent customers. The rollout of the smart meters was dealt with in a previous item. This is simply to include Indigent customers or consumers into the rollout plan. So that's why that's the issue here. So and why we have a recommendation number 3 is because whether we can say we are not ready, consumers, they don't know we are not ready. All they are saying is, okay, the municipality comes to me, they're forcing me to sign this form, they're going to restrict my water. So internally, we need to sort out number 3 because ideally the rollout plan should go smooth. So that we don't have all these processes that we go, hold and stop. And so let's not confuse the issue.
So we will still use the old form.
Yes.
Thank you, Speaker. I was just about to say, because if we withdraw the form that is actually already signed, what will it mean to the applications that actually have been done for the year already? Because for me, mine was to say, let's scrape out of that, because it was the only addition in that form, only new, is the fact that there's actually this wedding. Apart from that, the rest is as it should. So we can go as far as saying that additional clause in that form be ignored up until public participation is done and the public is actually aware and signing on to that. Second to that is, this is the point that is actually has an amendment is 10.6.4. The reason why there's this back and forth debate in the House is how we read policy, how we read policies that we love reading points in isolation of the actual crux of that point. I would rather that next time there is an addition or an amendment that requires our indulgence, that we have all points added so that it will save us from this debate, because chances are in those points, there's actually a clear point that actually gives the public or the people the power to consent to whether or not they wanted the device. Because as per our discussion, when we actually sit policy review, it was how it was never going to be force-fed into anyone, but there was going to be a consent from each person who'd want to have it in their yard. Now, with policies, the moment we actually want to deal with a certain point in isolation of the actual point, then we miss the entire point. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. The last councillor is Councillor Kamkam, then we will move.
Yes.
No, Speaker, I just wanted to say that we do have, with Councillor raised a very good point, that we do have staff members that actually should be equipped on how to actually speak to the customers and explain to them the amendments.
Thank you. Councillor, that is next, we'll move to the next item. Item C, stroke 2/76, stroke 10, stroke 22. Section 52 report for the quarter ended 30 September. Would find the item on page 466 to 575. Item now serving. Executive Mayor. Councillor, is your hand up? Sorry, okay.
It's like in the auction.
Executive Mayor.
Thank you, Speaker. Just to comment, if one looks at this report at face value, it looks like we're doing fine as a municipality for the quarter, and that we're 3% up on our budget in terms of income. But we mustn't be misled by the grants and the equitable share that we've just received. That's making our figures look better than they actually are. I'd say, in fact, we still are in difficulty in terms of finances, although our collections are improving. It's still not where it should be, and we're not out of the red yet. We still have overspending some areas. For instance, overtime overspent by 26%, but I know there's a plan in place to deal with that. So our financial performance is still not good. The current, if you look under the conclusion on financial position and performance on page 477, it says here the financial performance for the quarter in 30th September still does not bode well for the financial sustainability of the municipality. The current cash flow is not sufficient to sustain operations in the short term, medium term, as well as the long term, and the current financial ratio is far below the best practice norm. The depletion of all cash reserves over the last 4 years is the main contributor to the position that the municipality finds itself in. But what I must at least comment on as well is that in terms of the current ratio, there has been a slight improvement on the last month, on August, where we've increased it from 1.5 to 1 to 1.8 to 1. And that's within the acceptable norm, but not quite at the level where we should be. So I just wanted people to note that although our income is looking good, it's not as good as what it appears because of the equitable share that we did receive. So we still got a lot of work to do, and I'd like to propose that we go to the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor. Proposed by the Executive Mayor. Councillor Nyal or Councillor Kamkam?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Kamkam. Next item, item C, stroke 2, stroke 77, stroke 10, stroke 22. List of withdrawals from municipal bank account for the quarter ended 30 September 2022. You would find the item on page 576 to 581. Item is now serving. Councillor Olivier. Proposed by Councillor Olivier. Councillor Kamkam.
Seconded, Speaker.
Seconded by Councillor Kamkam. Next item, it is the environment report for the quarter ended 30 September 2022. Item C, stroke 2, stroke 78, stroke 10, stroke 22. The item is on page 582, page 583. Item is now serving. Councillor Manhaba, is that your hand?
Yes, Speaker.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Speaker. If you actually look at the, okay, we first go back to the meaning just of what environment is. You get there exactly what influences those decisions to actually move funds from what was actually initially planned for to another. This brought us to a conversation at our portfolio meeting where I raised that if we would all be working together at budget stage, there shouldn't be an issue. There shouldn't be violence whatsoever. Or if there is, there should be minimal thereof. I pray and hope for a day where this municipality and its departments would actually serve as a unit. That when we sit and we actually bring our minds together with regards to budgeting, every department is actually playing a role and is wide awake. For the past 2 years or so, we've had major emergencies in this town that not planning for them is mindless. But you find that when you go through the reports, there's this material that needed to be bought for disaster, this and that. All of that because disaster was not really considered with regards to, or with regards to what is a budget. Mind you, these are officials we sit with. They have coffee with us while we actually sit in these engagements, and they never say a thing. And then come a point of need, then we are reactionary. We need to be able to preempt how much is it that we would actually need. And obviously that is not a thumbsuck. We would actually do a study over the previous years that how much have we spent on this, how much have we had this and that, so that come the time, we don't get to sit with a situation where people are without housing for almost 2 months because there's no budget for emergencies. With that being said, what's this? Take me to the recommendations again. Is that the cognizance be taken? Yes, we actually take it to consideration and into account and into cognizance with the very same notes that I actually have made for us to actually be a solid unit working together towards being best together. We all need to be present. We all need to stop operating in silos.
Thanks, Councillor. Sorry, I was just asking if there's a hand there on the,
No.
but someone raised a hand there.
Yeah, Felix was clapping.
Okay.
You did second the proposal.
I second.
Yes,
Both, I think.
I was opposing,
Was the first one?
yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. City Council. His speech was so, I just frustrated. Thank you, Speaker. Yeah, if you look at the environments, it's true what you are saying. You can already see, especially with the standby allowances, the salaries, the wages and all of that.
Don't do speech.
Councillor?
You're also doing speech. Backhand.
Golden girl.
Yeah, if.
She's a golden girl.
Why are you a golden girl?
She's a golden girl.
Councillors, can we have one councillor? I understand that you want to smile a bit and have some fun, but not now. You see, Councillor Mangaba, next time I'm calling you to one of these councillors. There's a councillor on the floor. Let's behave.
Why don't point the same?
Don't point the finger to another.
Calling out my same why?
Let's continue where the councillor left off.
Thank you, Speaker. We will elaborate on that in the e-committee. Thank you very much, and I will propose.
Second.
Councillor.
Hey, I put you offline
Oh, no, you did not. I was actually about to finish, but you are so.
because you were saying you were proposing now, not second.
Next item.
I'm joking, man. Don't be serious.
Stop behaving like this.
The next item is item C, stroke 2, stroke 79, stroke 10, stroke 22.
Good night.
Cost containment report for the quarter ending 30 September 2022. The item is on page 584 to 586. Item is now serving. Councillor Koluapi?
I second.
No, Councillor, you can't.
Hey,
But anyway,
ingathi sibetha nawe nje. Ingathi siyakulimaza nawe.
cost containment report, that it looked at, but also just saying that the cost containment should not take from our legal that we're having, because we're doing cost containment, Speaker. Please, I
was waiting for that, for you to fight it. You see, we control the meetings now. We make sure we will take this one in the office, Councillor. You are out of line now. We will make sure. We'll make sure we put a smile on your face very soon. I think after this one, the smile will be there. Check the SMS, Councillor. It's gonna come. Don't worry. SMS is there. Please make sure you use the correct paperwork next time.
Okay.
There's a proposal on the floor. Councillor Kamkam?
Seconded, Speaker.
Thank you. And I'm going to switch my phone off after this meeting. The SMS is not received.
Yeah.
Let's continue to the next item. We move on to the next section. Section 3 deals with corporate services. The first item is item C, stroke 3, stroke 60, stroke 10, stroke 22. Schedule of meetings for councillors for 23 for portfolio committees, mayoral committees, and council. The first item, page 5588594. Item is now serving. Councillor Manlaba, your hand is up. Is it up? Or you're scratching your head? I see your hands. I don't think your hand is up, eh? Councillor?
His hand was not up, Speaker.
Not up. Councillor Nell, Councillor Kamkam, Councillor Wolofir.
Can I pass my hand? Councillor,
Okay, lead us, Councillor Wolofir.
I wanted to go with the recommendation, Speaker.
Councillor Kamkam.
And they're happy when I do that because I don't do long speeches.
Next item is the approval of the Bitou Municipality Records Management Policy. Item C, stroke 3, stroke 61, stroke 10, stroke 22. The item is on page 595 to 615. Item is now serving. Councillor Kamkam.
I propose that we go with the recommendation, Speaker.
Councillor Wolofir.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Next item, it is the communication strategy for the Bitou local municipality. Item C, stroke 3, stroke 62, stroke 10, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 616 to 646. Item is now serving. Councillor Tsapai.
I go with the recommendation, Speaker.
Councillor Tsapai.
You are taking it over
Councillor Manlaba.
from the DA.
Seconded, Speaker.
Seconded, Councillor Manlaba. The next item deals with the communication section, social media guidelines for Bitou Municipality. Item C, stroke 3.
Oh, yes, sorry. IPM.
Stroke 10, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 647 to page 656. The item is now serving. Councillor Kamkam.
Propose that we go with the recommendation, Speaker.
Proposed by Councillor Kamkam. Councillor Manlaba, you end up.
In the spirit of trying to limit trigger happy small parties on social media, I support the recommendation.
This one was not in the boardroom. Let's not discuss this one in the boardroom. Next item. It's the communication language policy for the Bitou Municipality and suggested actions to comply with the review by the Pan South African Language Board, in brackets PAN-SALB. The item is item C, stroke 3, stroke 64, stroke 10, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 657, 666. Item is now serving. Councillor Kamkam.
Proposed, Speaker.
Proposed by Councillor Kamkam. Councillor Manlaba.
Thank you, Speaker. In the energy of seconding it, may not be misconstrued as we can use all these languages in council up until we have an interpreter for that. Seconded.
Seconded by Estelle. Last item under section 3. It is the review draft placement policy 2022. Item C, stroke 3, stroke 71, stroke 10, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 667 to 681. The item is now serving. Councillor Mhlana.
Yeah, Speaker, before I propose, I know this thing of placement was first introduced by DA in 2011. DA in COPE at the time. I hope it's not going to be used now to deal with certain individuals or for witch hunt purposes. So I therefore second the
Opposed.
the recommendations.
Yes, just to give you, if you have read it, it does not speak to such, and the policy is clear. It is outlined there, so we will ensure that people is best placed close to the qualification and not no head hunting, if you have read it. Thank you, Councillor. There's a proposal by Councillor Mhlana.
So, Speaker, isn't there another councillor needs to be appointed? We must appoint another
You
councillor.
must, we can put you there to make sure. You don't want to serve.
That's the proposal there.
Yeah, no, but replacement. Yeah, no, but-
No, it must be taken by the executive.
The executive.
Yeah, they must do their things. We know they are going to,
On your council.
they want to. You can't put an opposition councillor.
Oversight.
Can we have a name, please? Councillor Kolwapi?
I propose to Simon Valentine.
Is a proposal for councillor's name?
By oversight purpose.
Councillor, do you accept?
Since I'm already sitting at LLF,
Right,
yes, it is.
right.
Councillor,
Since I'm already seated at LLF, I may as well be a part of it. I accept.
there's a proposal that we accept Councillor Mangaba.
You will be with the councillor Kamkam there. You know how to deal with it.
The name is there. Councillor Mhlana proposed that we go with the Councillor Mangaba. Councillor Adamson?
I, Councillor Adams, second the proposal.
Thank you. We continue to section 4, community service. First item deals with the update on the development, design and planning of a regional landfill site at the Garden Road District Municipality. Item C, stroke 4, stroke 24, stroke 09, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 683 to 687. Item is now serving. Councillor Ndai, seeing that you are representative on the Garden Road.
Thank you, Speaker. We go with the recommendation of the MM and the mayor. Thank you.
Proposed by our Councillor Ndai. Deputy Mayor,
Second, Speaker.
seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Next item, it is the approval of the naming and numbering of street policy. Item C, stroke 4, stroke 30, stroke 09, stroke 22. You would find the item on page 688 to 700. The item is now serving. Councillor Ndai,
We go with the recommendation, Speaker.
proposed by Councillor Ndai. Councillor Kolwapi,
Seconded.
seconded by Councillor Kolwapi.
And then I hit district. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Last item is the draft seasonal plan for 2022-2023 community service. You would find the item C, stroke 4, stroke 35, stroke 10, stroke 22, page 701, page 750. Deputy Mayor,
I go with the recommendation, Speaker. Thank you.
Councillor Mhlana,
It's from us, so I.
Does it state that everything must be the open book? That's written.
in future,
Okay, see,
must write the percentage after each council meeting in terms of support and seconded.
That side would actually be on the lead every time,
And give a performance bonus to councillors for,
the entire time, I can tell you.
I think we would receive all the bonus. Thank you.
I need to go sit it.
We have the other items. We will move to the next section. Councillor Mhlana, I'll make sure if I get the bonus, I will buy you a tire. Thank you.
It's a bonus, that comes.
Councillors with the most proposed and second, we will work something out in
Okay,
section 5. It is the engineering services. We have one item. Item C, stroke 5, stroke 41, stroke 10, stroke 22, the monthly and quarterly report for electrical and mechanical for the period of July to September 2022, page 752 to 761. The item is now serving. Councillor Mhlana, Councillor Ndai.
Note the point, Speaker.
Proposed by Councillor Mhlana,
I second it, Speaker.
seconded by Councillor Ndai. Going into section 6. Don't you? I think this is where we need to take a break and refresh. Because
Maybe we should.
the war room is here.
We're an hour.
I will allow 5 minutes, just quickly 5. Just 5, it is now. section 6.
After review.
The same as with all the explanation.
We gonna start off. Section 6 is the economic development and planning. The first item, it is item C, stroke 6, stroke 54, stroke 10, stroke 22. Proposed spatial rating area in brackets SRA bylaw for Bitou Municipality. Find the item on page 763 to 850. The item is now serving. Councillor Nyal.
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation of the Executive Mayor.
Proposed by Councillor Nyal. Councillor Olivier.
I second that.
Seconded by Councillor Olivier. Next item, item C, stroke 6, stroke 57, stroke 10, stroke 22. The Plet Tourism Association quarterly and financial reports for the period of July to September 2022. You would find the item on page 851 to 870. Item now serving. Councillor Nyal.
Speaker, I propose that we take note of the report.
Councillor Mhlana. Seconded by Councillor Mhlana. Next item, item C, stroke 6, stroke 58, stroke 10, stroke 22. The identification of municipal owned land for development purpose. You would find the item on page 871 to 882. Item now serving. Councillor Nyal.
Speaker, before I make a recommendation, I would just like to point out that there is an erratum. It should read in under the Kranshoek area, it should read Earth 993 and not Earth 998. I think there was an easy to make slip. The 3s and the 8s are very often confused with one another. So the correct item number there, or Earth number there, is in Kranshoek is Earth 993. And with that, I propose that we go with the recommendation.
We have that, the correct earth number, 993. Proposed by Councillor Nyal. Councillor Kamka.
Thank you, Speaker. I think there's additional recommendations with regard to Kirland. The reason for the exclusion of AF 117 is because currently there's already a proposed housing development on that site. So I second the proposal from Councillor Nyal.
Thank you, Councillor Kamkam. Item is the next item. It is item C, stroke 6, stroke 60, stroke 10, stroke 22. Bitou Municipal Spatial Development Framework in brackets SDF 2021. Status and way forward. You would find the item on page 883 to page 902. The item is now serving. Councillor Mangaba, then Councillor Nyal.
Excuse me, Speaker, Nell was first. I'll actually come after him.
Thank you, Councillor Nyal, then Councillor Mangaba.
Speaker, I propose that we go with the recommendation of the municipal manager. I just would like to point out, however, that there will be a public participation process in any of the proposed developments that may arise in the new portion of land that we wish to include in the spatial development framework. So it is not necessarily going to mean that there will be more automatic development in that area.
Councillor. Yeah, if we are busy. Continue, Councillor Nyal.
Speaking with that, I propose that we go with the recommendation as long as we take cognizance of the fact that this is just to, there will be public participation. It will not be necessarily include the automatic development in that area.
Proposed by Councillor Nyal. Councillor Manhaba.
Seconded, Speaker.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Manhaba.
Are you surprised that we sometimes think alike without me?
Next item, it's item C, stroke 6, stroke 61, stroke 10, stroke 22. F4513, Kwanakatula request by the South African Police Services to provide land for the expansion of the Kwanagatula Police Station. You would find the item on page 903, page 905. Item now serving. Councillor Ndai, Councillor Mangaba, Councillor Nel,
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to go with the recommendation.
Councillor Ndai proposed. Councillor Mangaba.
Thank you, Speaker. I commend this municipality as well as the council that when notes are actually made at council that they somewhat do not fall onto deaf ears. Because for the longest of time, this has been coming. And it sounded like when it was initiated, it was a gentleman's agreement, like Councillor Tabai would say. I love that there's actually an item in black and white detailing to that. We know our police station is not servicing KwaNokuthula alone. Also, Kranshoek actually is being serviced by that community in that Mickey Mouse and small corner that was actually donated by the municipality for them to put to use. And we know time and time again, there's been entries at IDP sessions where outcry from the community around that land has always been a thing. It's good to see it's actually coming to fruition. I know it's steady, but the needle is moving to a certain degree. And I will gladly support or second rather my colleague in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Speaker, private being the excuse, but I will raise my case.
Thank you, Councillor. The last item under section 6. Item stroke 6, stroke 62, stroke 10, stroke 22. Flat tourism interim memorandum of agreement. Page 906 to page 940. Item is now serving. Councillor Mangaba, Councillor Nel.
Are you recognizing Councillor Manaba before me? Because I thought my hand was up before.
No, his hand was first up, then it's yours.
Since the old man is being gentle with me today, let's allow him to go first. I'll come second.
Speaker, as before, I will be brief. I propose that we go with the recommendation by the municipal manager.
Thank you, Councillor Nel. Councillor Mangaba.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I understand the situation we're sitting with. We're approaching festive season and there's no contract currently in place. And our fear is all the fears that we actually had alluded to in that other meeting we had. However, my question is, are we really gonna overlook the fact that no matter how old the existing MOA is, that the plat tourism has only owned up to one point of that agreement, which is to be a destination marketing space and nothing else but that. Are we gonna overlook the mediocrity that is sitting in how they are servicing this town with regards to tourism? Are we really gonna blatantly disregard the fact that even when you read on that report that they actually sent about this much visitors, that much bottle of wines were sold, that only speaks to the CBD area of Plettenberg Bay? Are we really gonna actually give them this much extension up until June next year? Whereas we know that if you were to ask them, how did they populate the information? Who gave them the information? Which businesses are they working with? That there's not going to be a mention of Kirland, Craig's, Olweni, KwaNokuthula, Kranshoek. Are we really going to blatantly disregard that and give them a pat on the shoulder and give them yet another money to squander? That was a rhetorical question. Apart from that, I rest my case.
Are you accepting?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we agree that there has been challenges, but what the expectations and the plate tourism. However, we need to move forward. And I think when we had our presentation, the director, community services, at that point in time, she also jumped in after the presentation and gave us an overview of what we as a municipality, we can actually do to make sure that our deliverables is the same as the expectations of what tourism is doing. So with that speaker, and also we know we had another organization here, but as things stand now, we do not have an agreement with that organization. We have an agreement with the Plate Tourism organization. I will propose that, you know, we need to move forward on this. We do acknowledge that these concerns, and the only thing we can do is that we need to manage those moving forward. I propose, I'm seconding Councillor Nels' proposal. You can speak up.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, that being the portfolio of index, done.
Where's lunch, Speaker?
We're gonna rush, then we less than. Ano maak kung balang sa maak. The next point is the point 11. Urgent matters submitted by the municipal manager. There's none. Point 12. Consideration of notice of motions. There's none.
Point of order, Speaker. Speaker, I believe you said it on record that the motion that was submitted last month will actually be tabled today. So I'm actually perplexed at your saying there's none.
We we were supposed to respond, Councillor.
Are you going to say what?
In writing.
That you submitted just because of this?
Continue to the next point.
What was the response, Speaker?
You will receive it in writing, Councillor.
So is Speaker acknowledging the fact that he had said we are tabulating it today and failed to do so?
Yes, apologies for that.
Oh, the whip, new whip.
Speaker, can you give me an opportunity to speak? Because we must not just leave these things hanging, because they will haunt you one day. The process of council must be adhered to. When a motion has been written and you accept the motion, the first council meeting, you said they will be answered in writing. Therefore, we thought that in this agenda, there will be those answers. But we don't see anything. And yet you are not giving an explicit answer. I don't know whether you are taking us for granted, as you usually do, or you've forgotten together with your official. Or I don't know whether you just receive a council agenda just like us within a couple of days. Because to my mind, I think you are the custodian of council and the agenda. Well, if then there is no item about those motions, I think you are taking us for granted. And you must give reasons why those answers are not given in writing in this particular council. I think you must take us very serious. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, let me respond. Councillor Fabai. Fabai.
Yes.
I do take all councillors serious. It's a matter of let's say, it not really slipped my mind, but I forgot to place it in the agenda. Hence, I've apologized for that, and I will make sure that the response in writing reach all councillors or the councillors that raise it. But let it be not seen as a matter of being disrespectful. I apologize in front of everybody, and it is in no such way that any councillor is being disrespected by me as the speaker. I would just like you to please don't take it seriously that I don't respect any person. Thank you.
I think, Speaker, I think you should have done that. Because if then I didn't interject, or this councillor were going to interject with the response that you show, as if you don't care, you should have given an explicit reason why it is not there. Now you are just doing it now. You see, that is why I was saying you are taking chances.
Thanks, councillor. Thank you very much. We continue. Point 13. Consideration of notices of questions. There was none. Consideration of motions of exigency. There was none. That we will then continue into point 15, the in-committee matters. We will now go into in-committee. Thank you. All present, those who must be excused can excuse themselves for in-committee.